In Korea, there is a concept used to refer to rich kids. They are called golden spoon. A typical example is the guys in front of us. Even though they are high school students, they have their own car to pick them up and drop them off. Not only that, this guy also has a team of bodyguards. Their appearance is not only the center of attention, but they also attract countless female students, including a girl with crossbangs and a strange style. This girl's name is Chae Kyung. Even though Chae Kyung is a student, one day she was forced to get married. Because Chae Kyung's grandfather had made a pact with the crown prince's grandfather, she suddenly got engaged to the country's successor. Since then, the two of them have been entangled in an unfortunate love affair. Li Xin is the crown prince, the successor to the throne of the country. Even though he is a member of the royal family, Li Xin does not go to the royal school, but studies at another normal high school. Every time the crown prince came to school, all the students would make a scene, especially the girls. They rushed out to look at their dream man and screamed like crazy. Only Chae Kyung didn't care about the crown prince. In contrast to Li Xin's wealthy background, Chae Kyung's full name was Shin Jae Kyung. She was a girl in her third year of high school. Chae Kyung was born into a commoner family. Not only that, her parents were also heavily in debt. Although Chae Kyung studied design, no one could understand Chae Kyung's fashion sense. She always wore a pair of sweatpants under her school uniform. In addition, Chae Kyung also hung out with a close group of friends. Chae Kyung's friends were also crazy about the crown prince. While Chae Kyung's friends were ecstatic all day long and looked at the handsome and dashing crown prince, she had only one goal, which was to become a famous fashion designer. At the same time, everyone was trembling with fear when they met the crown prince. As for Chae Kyung, Crown Prince Li Xin was just an ordinary classmate. While pouring water to clean the paintbrushes, Chae Kyung accidentally bumped into Li Xin. Chae Kyung had soiled the crown prince's pure white shoes. He immediately took off his shoes. Li Xin told Chae Kyung to throw them away. Chae Kyung was no pushover either. She stood up and yelled at Li Xin. She said that being the crown prince was nothing to be bigger. At home, she was also her parents' princess. Chae Kyung insisted that she was not a servant for Li Xin to order around. As soon as she finished speaking, Li Xin turned around. He told Chae Kyung that she was the only one who dared to oppose him. From now on, Li Xin would keep an eye on Chae Kyung. Then, he slowly approached Chae Kyung. His face gradually approached hers. At this moment, Chae Kyung unconsciously pursed her lips. She made her friends around her think they were about to witness a cheesy scene. However, it was all just Chae Kyung's thoughts. After all, she didn't have the guts to oppose the person who would lead the country. During lunch break, while wandering around the schoolyard, Chae Kyung accidentally heard a conversation between Li Xin and a classmate. That was the moment Li Xin confessed the proposal to that girl, but he was rejected. When the conversation was reaching its climax, Chae Kyung's phone suddenly rang loudly. The noise startled both people in the room. Li Xin immediately ran outside and discovered that the eavesdropper was Chae Kyung. However, she quickly ran away before he could catch her. That afternoon, after school, Li Xin accidentally saw Chae Kyung cycling on the road. Without hesitation, he immediately got off the bike to remind her about the proposal. At the same time, everyone was trembling with fear when they met the crown prince. As for Chae Kyung, Crown Prince Li Xin was just an ordinary classmate. Li Xin told Chae Kyung absolutely not to reveal it to anyone, or he wouldn't forgive for her. But right after returning home, Chae Kyung was suddenly informed by her parents that she had an engagement with the crown prince. It turned out that this was a promise between the two grandfathers years ago, and now the royal palace wanted to fulfill that agreement. Chae Kyung strongly objected to this sudden news. She did not want an arranged marriage. On the day of the appointment to go to the palace, although Chae Kyung still listened to her parents and went to the palace, she had never accepted this marriage in her heart. Seeing her reluctance, Chae Kyung's father could not bear to force her. At that moment, a group of creditors came to Chae Kyung's house. They made trouble everywhere and kept threatening. In the middle of the heated argument between the two sides, someone from the palace suddenly appeared to pick up Chae Kyung. Sitting in the car heading to the palace, Chae Kyung gradually understood her family's difficult situation. Now, only by accepting to marry the crown prince can she help her parents overcome the financial crisis. After arriving at the palace, Chae Kyung was arranged to wait for the queen. But Chae Kyung, who was curious by nature, could not sit still. She ran around, looking around. Her hands were all over the place. Chae Kyung almost spilled everything around her. Even when she drank a cup of water, she was so clumsy that she spilled all the water on her dress. At that moment, the queen walked in. When she saw Chae Kyung, the queen seemed very displeased. Although this engagement had been arranged by the adults, the queen still said that if Chae Kyung did not want it, she could refuse. However, contrary to the queen's expectations, Chae Kyung frankly declared that she came here today to accept the marriage proposal. The reason she gave was very simple. She wanted the royal family to help her parents. Hearing this, the queen became even more dissatisfied with the future daughter-in-law. In contrast to the queen's discomfort, the queen mother seemed very pleased with Chae Kyung. When talking to Chae Kyung, the queen mother realized that the language of the royal court and the common language were slightly different. After listening to Chae Kyung explain her situation, the queen mother suddenly felt so dizzy that almost fainted. Chaekyung was then taken to meet the crown prince. In response to Chaekyung's question, Li Xin calmly explained that he agreed to marry her because he found her simple, ordinary, and interesting. He also said that Chaekyung was like a character in a children's story. That statement made Chaekyung angry and leave. After a while of hesitation, she decided to ask her close friends for their opinions on whether or not to get married. Her friends all agreed that Chaekyung was too young. If she got married now, she would regret it later. Hearing that, Chaekyung decided to take the engagement token and intended to take it away to break off the engagement. However, when Chaekyung just got to the bus stop, she was stunned before she could even get on the bus because she saw the news about her and the crown prince's wedding. It appeared densely on all the newspapers. Her and Li Xin's pictures were everywhere. At this point, Chaekyung could not break off the engagement. She could only sit at home and cry loudly. But the funny thing was, Chaekyung cried not because she could not break off the engagement, but because she felt humiliated when her fat picture was posted everywhere. Early the next morning, Chaekyung woke up. She was still half asleep and had not even brushed her teeth or washed her face when her disheveled appearance was quickly captured by reporters. Immediately after that, Chaekyung's dirty face appeared on the front page of major newspapers. The Queen Mother couldn't help but laugh when she saw this scene, while the Queen sitting next to her was extremely annoyed. However, the Queen Mother was still very pleased, even though Chaekyung was only a niece-in-law who had been engaged before. On Chaekyung's side, the reporters had blocked the entrance. This caused her whole family to have a hard time. They finally helped Chaekyung escape to go to school, but even when she got to school, she still couldn't rest in peace. There were endless gossips and judgments all around, especially the photo of Chaekyung sleeping this morning. It became a hotter topic than ever. In fact, the person who was originally engaged to Chaekyung was not Li Xin, but his cousin, Prince Li Yule. Because Li Yule's father passed away when he was only 5 years old, Li Xin's father later ascended the throne. Therefore, the engagement was transferred to Crown Prince Li Xin. After his father passed away, Li Yule and his mother moved to England to live. It was not until he heard that Li Xin was getting married that Li Yule's mother told him to return to Korea. After returning, Li Yule visited his grandmother. He also said that he would stay in Korea to live. Not only that, Li Yule also enrolled in the same school that Chaekyung and Li Xin were studying. Coincidentally, because they were in the same major, Li Yule was placed in the same class as Chaekyung. As for Min Hyo Rin, the girl that Li Xin had a secret crush on, after Hyo Rin rejected Li Xin's proposal, she went abroad to participate in a ballet competition. But when she heard people gossiping about the relationship between Chaekyung and Li Xin, she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Chaekyung had doubts in her heart. She didn't understand why Li Xin wanted to marry her, while he already had another girl in his heart. However, Li Xin's answer hurt Chaekyung. Li Xin said that he didn't want to tie down the girl he loved. Li Xin didn't want to turn Min Hyo Rin into a caged bird. Not stopping there, Li Xin bluntly asked Chaekyung to take off her gym pants, the pants she always wore under her uniform. He thought it looked weird, and it was completely unworthy of a crown prince. After saying that, Li Xin left. He left Chaekyung with countless thoughts. Finally, the day came for Chaekyung to enter the palace. She would be instructed in royal etiquette. Then Chaekyung put on a luxurious and elegant traditional dress. At that moment, Chaekyung seemed to have transformed into a completely different person. She walked out of the gate, preparing to leave. Outside, countless reporters and newspapers took pictures. Flashes flashed non-stop. People lined up on both sides of the street. They waved colorful flags and flowers to see Chaekyung off. Not long after, Chaekyung was taken to the palace to begin the process of learning the rules. Sitting among the piles of books piled high like mountains, Chaekyung read until her eyes became dizzy. She kept reading each line until the queen came to visit. Seeing her future daughter-in-law sleeping soundly, the queen couldn't help but shake her head in dismay. The palace maid saw this and kept calling out to Chaekyung, but she still didn't wake up. Worried about everything in the near future, the queen instructed the palace maids to teach Chaekyung carefully to avoid making mistakes in the future. But studying was boring, so Chaekyung decided to sneak out to play, so that the palace maids who followed her was scolded. The queen complained to the queen mother, then complained to the emperor. At first, she didn't like Chaekyung, so now that she saw Chaekyung being clumsy and stupid, she was even more upset. However, after a short time, the crash course ended. On the day of the knowledge test, the two palace maids serving Chaekyung were extremely nervous, because if Chaekyung failed, they would also be severely punished. In the urgent situation, Chaekyung used her top-notch copying skills to survive the basic test. With writing all over her arm, Chaekyung spoke like flowing water as she recited her notes. In another scene, Chaekyung's friends outside were eagerly preparing everything to welcome the crown princess, while Chaekyung missed them just as much inside the palace. While Chaekyung was studying hard, the crown prince suddenly visited to comfort her. He said that Chaekyung just needed to try to stay by his side for a few years. After Li Xin grew up, he would divorce her and give her back her freedom. Along with that, Li Xin also brought her a very large bag of candy, which was a gift from Prince Li Yul. Li Xin also promised that every month he would let Chaekyung visit her parents. Finally, the wedding day came. Chaekyung's parents were invited to the palace to attend the wedding. Outside the palace, the atmosphere was more bustling than ever. People crowded the streets to wait for such a special wedding. The streets were packed with people. Flags and banners were hung everywhere. Everyone poured into the streets to watch the ceremony. The ceremony was being broadcast live on all news. Not only domestic reporters, but also foreign reporters simultaneously reported on it. The royal wedding became an event that attracted worldwide attention. Inside the palace, when all the preparations were completed and the bride's parents were present, they took the opportunity to instruct their daughter on important things before getting married. After hearing the instructions from their parents, the crown prince and crown princess stepped out together to parade and greet the people. Wherever the bride and groom's procession went, cheers and congratulations rang out, creating an extremely bustling atmosphere. At the same time, at Chaekyung's house, the phone rang continuously with congratulatory calls. Previously, no one paid much attention to her family, but now that Chaekyung had married a royal, all her acquaintances suddenly appeared. They rushed to send their congratulations to the young couple. Throughout the long day, Chaekyung and Li Xin had to perform all the customs and rituals of the wedding. No matter how strong they were, they could not avoid being tired. When everything was over, both Li Xin and Chaekyung slept soundly from exhaustion. However, this was not the end yet. Because they were both still minors, the toasting ceremony could not take place today. Chaekyung carried her excitement everywhere. She did not miss a single corner of her new palace. Then Chaekyung and Li Xin attended the greeting ceremony of the Queen Mother, along with the King and Queen. During the meeting, the Queen Mother kindly instructed her children and grandchildren about etiquette and family. In addition, Chaekyung was also assigned 3 female experts to be her bodyguards. Not only that, Chaekyung also received an important document. Inside were clearly stated all the assets owned. For the first time in her life, Chaekyung witnessed with her own eyes the huge numbers representing the value of her assets. Just counting each number was enough to keep Chaekyung up all night. The next morning, Chaekyung was extremely excited because she had now officially become a rich person. Even when sitting in the car on the way to school, Chaekyung still took the time to take out a pen and paper to write down the amount of money she owned. Chaekyung's face was so bright that she smiled foolishly the whole way. As the car carrying the two entered the schoolyard as usual, the appearance of the crown prince immediately caused a stir among the students. As soon as the car door opened, the crowd rushed in. They took turns taking pictures and videos. The only difference was that this time, not only the crown prince, but also the crown princess became the center of attention. Here, Chaekyung received her sweatpants back from Prince Li Yul. She had no idea that he was the one who had been promised to her. Seeing that he was a new transfer student, Chaekyung happily welcomed him. She was completely unaware of Li Yul's true identity. When she entered the classroom, Chaekyung was surprised to realize that her 3 best friends were deliberately ignoring her, simply because on the day of the wedding, Chaekyung had also ignored them. Chaekyung tried all sorts of tricks to please her friends. She hoped to reconnect with them, but all were in vain. In the end, Chaekyung had to sit down and talk to Li Yul. She said that she was still trying to understand her friend's feelings because it would be difficult for anyone to accept when a close friend suddenly became the crown princess. After that, the two talked quite well. Thanks to Li Yul's willingness to listen, Chaekyung also felt a bit more relieved. In another development, Min Yo-rin, the crown prince's ballet friend, returned from the competition. She went to Li Xin to confide and tried to ask if he still wanted to continue their relationship. But when she looked into the crown prince's eyes, Min Yo-rin found the answer for herself. After pouring out her feelings, Li Yul and Chaekyung returned to class. Chaekyung stepped up to the podium, then intended to say a few words to her friends about her suddenly becoming the crown princess, something she never expected. But surprisingly, the whole class had quietly prepared a welcome for Chaekyung with a multi-layered cake and countless fireworks. Everyone congratulated her and wished her happiness. Even the teacher, when she entered the classroom, joked that Chaekyung got married too early. Chaekyung took all the teacher's share of getting married. After that, the atmosphere in the classroom became more lively than ever. Both the teacher and the students were happy together. After Li Xin got married, Li Yul immediately became the next target of female students in the school. One day, Li Yul went to the airport to pick up his mother. Here, he coincidentally met a close friend of his father's in the past. This man came to interview Li Yul's mother. Also at the airport, Min Yo-rin, the crown prince's ballet friend, coincidentally met both his mother and Li Yul. Not only that, Min Yo-rin's teacher was also surprised to discover that Li Yul's mother was the senior in the ballet world that she had admired in the past. At this point, Min Yo-rin realized that the person chosen as crown prince should have been Li Yul, not Li Xin. As for the queen, when she heard that her nephew Li Yul had returned to Korea, she couldn't help but worry. Now that she heard that her sister-in-law had also returned, the queen was even more uneasy. In another scene, for a common girl like Chaekyung, having to record and report on meals in detail was truly truly torture. During the day, she was busy with studying, and at night, she had to perform countless study tasks and practice court etiquette. The fatigue just drained Jae-kyung's strength. Not only that, Jae-kyung also happened to see Lee Shin talking happily on the phone. She immediately guessed that the person on the other end of the line was Min Hyo-rin. This made Jae-kyung even more upset. While the two were having their meal, Lee Shin's phone rang again. As expected, the caller was Min Hyo-rin. Jae-kyung waited for Lee Shin to finish talking, and then softly told him that he could talk freely without paying attention to her. But it seemed like she had heard too much. Lee Shin was only paying attention to the rice grains stuck on Jae-kyung's face. Jae-kyung angrily criticized Lee Shin. She thought that he was just using the marriage to achieve his personal goals. Hearing that, Lee Shin did not to give up. He coldly replied that she also agreed to marry because of the royal family's money. Those words made Jae-kyung so angry that she cried. Jae-kyung scolded Lee Shin and ran straight back to her room. Jae-kyung left Lee Shin sitting there, dumbfounded, not understanding what he had said wrong. Jae-kyung angrily ran outside and accidentally met Lee Yul. At that time, he was on his way to meet the Queen Mother. Immediately, the two of them chatted happily and comfortably. In the middle of the heated conversation, Lee Shin suddenly called. He asked Jae-kyung to return to her room. After returning, Jae-kyung was teased by Lee Shin. After that, he told her that she could go home to visit her parents and invite them to the palace to play. Not stopping there, Lee Shin also told Jae-kyung to call her friends to eat together. Not long after school, Jae-kyung's friends helped her disguise herself so that she could sneak out past the bodyguards. They did this just so that Jae-kyung could have a chance to enjoy street food. But in the end, Jae-kyung was left alone by Lee Shin, so she had to find her own way back to the palace. Meanwhile, the Queen Mother was always observing and scrutinizing her granddaughter-in-law. She did not forget to give Jae-kyung many instructions. As for Jae-kyung's parents, after being invited to the palace, they had the opportunity to meet the Queen Mother, the Emperor, and the Empress. After chatting for a while, Jae-kyung's parents were taken to where Jae-kyung lived to visit. However, at that time, Jae-kyung had not finished her lesson yet. Due to the strict requirements of the queen, the palace maids could not be lenient with Jae-kyung. When Jae-kyung finished her work, she returned to palace and discovered that her parents had left. Frustrated and resentful, Jae-kyung cried for a while and then blamed Lee Shin for not keeping her parents while she missed them so much. But it turned out that Jae-kyung had wrongly blamed Lee Shin because even he did not know that they had left. That night, when the two sat together in the living room, Jae-kyung noticed that Lee Shin was wearing headphones, listening to music. She decided to express her true feelings. Jae-kyung said that she knew he still loved Min Hyo-rin. She also knew that after the divorce, he would definitely marry Min Hyo-rin. Thinking of that, Jae-kyung could not help but feel sad and heartbroken. At this moment, the crown prince suddenly stood up and left. Out of curiosity, Jae-kyung ran over to see what music he was listening to. Unexpectedly, there was no disc inside the player. That meant Lee Shin had heard everything she had just said. Jae-kyung was so embarrassed that she didn't know where to hide her face. She immediately ran back to her room. Then the crown prince's birthday came. All the young men and women and children of noble families gathered. They held a grand party to celebrate Lee Shin's birthday. Originally just a commoner, Jae-kyung had a lot of difficulty trying to integrate into this luxurious environment. Not only that, Jae-kyung was also constantly teased by the crown prince's friends, especially Min Hyo-rin. They tried every way to make Jae-kyung lose face and feel shy at the party. Even when giving gifts, Jae-kyung was not spared. While everyone gave expensive luxury gifts, the gift Jae-kyung made herself was considered cheap and worthless. No one cared about Jae-kyung's sincerity. They only looked at the material value. This made Jae-kyung's group of friends both angry and pitying her more. Jae-kyung's close friends also brought gifts for the crown prince, but he did not bother to receive them. Not stopping there, the group of flattering friends also deliberately arranged the seats so that Jae-kyung was far away from the crown prince. Instead, the person sitting near the crown prince was Min Hyo-rin. Not wanting to continue to endure that suffocating atmosphere, Jae-kyung and her three friends went to the lake outside to confide. They comforted Jae-kyung because they witnessed what she had to endure at the party. While talking, Jae-kyung accidentally blurted out that the person the crown prince truly loved and proposed to was Min Hyo-rin. At that moment, Lee Yul also came to Jae-kyung's group of friends to chat. After that, the whole group joked around, pushed each other into the lake, and played and splashed water happily. On the other side, the crown prince also saw his wife playing like that. A little jealousy arose in his heart because he had never had such a chance to be happy and comfortable. Looking down at the shoes that Jae-kyung had personally made for him, he quietly put them on and smiled. At this moment, Min Hyo-rin walked up to him. She brought out a music player and listened to it together. Unfortunately, that moment between the crown prince and Min Hyo-rin was secretly captured by a reporter. For more than 10 years, every morning, the crown prince had to personally check the food and drinks for the emperor. When Chaekyung heard this, she could not help but be surprised. Even though there were countless layers of food safety control in the palace, she still could not understand why he had to do this himself. At the same time, Li Yul went to the palace every day to meet the Queen Mother. But if anyone paid attention, they could see that it was just an excuse. His real purpose was to meet the crown princess. One day, after meeting Chaekyung, Li Yul took her to the palace where he lived when he was young. This did not escape the crown prince's notice. The crown prince then reminded Chaekyung to be careful and not to be too close to Li Yul. But Chaekyung argued with him without hesitation. Chaekyung said that if Li Shin really loved Min Hyo-rin, then why didn't he persevere to be with her? Hearing this, Li Shin was upset, but he couldn't do anything to Chaekyung. Luckily, it was time to drink white lotus tea with the elders. Otherwise, the two would definitely stand there arguing endlessly. White lotus tea and reciting poems were a long-standing tradition in the palace. The elders and even the crown prince recited poems very well. When it was Chaekyung's turn, she luckily remembered a few improvised poems that Li Yul had taught her the day before. Then, Chaekyung recited them. Unexpectedly, the Queen Mother was very pleased and praised Chaekyung. The next day when she arrived at school, Chaekyung immediately ran to Li Yul to thank him profusely. Then Chaekyung and her friends taught him alien languages, making the whole group laugh and talk happily throughout the lesson. In another scene, the game of golf, a game similar to golf, was very popular in the royal palace. Chaekyung also joined the crown prince. The two of them walked around the palace and hit the ball everywhere. Seeing the children playing happily outside, the Queen Mother was very pleased. Moving to an exhibition area, today was also the opening day of the art exhibition. Chaekyung and Li Shin participated in the ribbon-cutting ceremony. After that, the two continued to take photos and give interviews. But while they were happily posing for the camera, a chicken egg suddenly flew straight at them and hit the crown prince in the face. Although Chaekyung rushed out to block it, it was too late. That caused the whole event to become chaotic. Chaekyung was so worried about Li Shin that she wanted to visit and comfort him. But before Chaekyung could do so, Li Yul stopped her. In the end, she listened to his advice and decided not to go see the crown prince. Ironically, Li Shin accidentally saw Chaekyung sitting with Li Yul. This made the situation even more awkward. Because she was so worried, on the way back, Chaekyung walked and thought, tears silently falling out of sympathy for her husband. When he saw that scene, Li Shin couldn't help but be moved. He tried to reassure her that he was fine. He even joked a few words to help her relax. Suddenly, Chaekyung ran up and hugged Li Shin from behind and kept apologizing. He was very touched by that action, but he accidentally said a few insincere words. That's why Chaekyung, who was initially scared, turned angry. Then, Li Shin went to the horse racing club to meet a group of rich friends. He left without Chaekyung. As for Li Yul's mother, she returned with the ambition of reclaiming the throne for her son. To connect with the upper class, she opened a luxurious yoga studio and established relationships with many people of high status in society. Here, Li Yul's mother coincidentally met Min Hyo-rin again. The two realized that their situations had many similarities, so they quickly found common ground in their conversation. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, a grand diplomatic banquet was held to welcome foreign ambassadors. When he came to pick up his wife, the crown prince was stunned. Before his eyes, his commoner wife was now gorgeous in an extremely beautiful evening gown. In the midst of the joyful atmosphere of the party, Li Yul and his mother suddenly appeared. Li Yul's mother wore a bright red evening gown, looking extremely noble and gorgeous. Her charismatic appearance immediately attracted all eyes. The reporters and press quickly surrounded her, taking pictures and asking questions continuously. This made the queen worried and angry. Meanwhile, according to the party's protocol, the crown prince would step out and invite his wife to dance. Although both of them were a bit awkward, they still completed the dance perfectly in the end, contributing to the smooth flow of the diplomatic meeting. At the end of the banquet, a magnificent fireworks display was performed. It was the first time Chaekyung witnessed such a brilliant scene, so she could not hide her excitement. Chaekyung jostled and pushed to get the best position to watch the fireworks. Chaekyung even almost knocked the king over. Chaekyung's carefree attitude left everyone speechless. Chaekyung was so busy running that she did not notice that her shoes had fallen off. Amidst the surprised and admiring eyes of the people around, the crown prince quietly walked over to pick up the shoes. Then he bent down to put the shoes on Chaekyung's feet. Early the next morning, Chaekyung was still innocently immersed in her beautiful dream, with the image of the shoe and the mythical Cinderella story. Chaekyung kept talking about that story until the crown prince was tired of listening. In the end, he had to remind her that the party had ended a long time ago, and it was best for her to wake up. However, for a young girl like Chaekyung, she was living in such a situation. It was undeniable that Jae Kyung also had feelings for Li Shin. She also could not distinguish between genuine concern and just a facade in front of everyone. Jae Kyung realized that she really liked seeing the crown prince smile, so she spent her efforts making a human-shaped pillow and pasting the crown prince's face on it. However, when Li Shin saw this childish thing, he did not show any joy, but coldly reminded Jae Kyung that instead of doing such useless things, it was better for her to focus on learning proper etiquette. Hearing that, Jae Kyung was upset because her hard work for many days was mercilessly criticized. Too angry, she immediately vented her anger on the pillow. She punched and kicked it badly. Witnessing Jae Kyung's childish actions, the crown prince couldn't help but laugh. He suddenly felt that his wife was really cute. Not only that, Li Shin also secretly ran out to take a few photos of Jae Kyung. The next morning, Jae Kyung wore a beautiful dress to meet her seniors. But Jae Kyung couldn't help but be surprised when she discovered that the crown prince didn't wait for her to go with her this morning. It turned out that he had intentionally come early to ask for permission from the queen mother, the emperor, and the queen. Li Shin hoped that they would let him and Jae Kyung visit her family. Finally, after so many days of waiting, Jae Kyung got her wish. She could visit her parents. The two of them just visited her home, but the newspapers and reporters were all excitedly reporting and taking photos, as if this was an important event. Li Shin had lived in a luxurious palace since he was young, so he had never had the chance to experience the life of ordinary people. However, he adapted quite well to the circumstances of Jae Kyung's family. After a relatively sumptuous meal, it was time to divide the bedrooms. Knowing that Jae Kyung's family was not well off, so Li Shin did not ask for much. But after some consideration, the two could only sleep together in Jae Kyung's small room. Compared to the living conditions in the palace, this room was indeed too cramped for Li Shin. Not only that, the bed was even smaller, not wide enough for two people to lie down. So the two argued once again over who would sleep on the floor and who would sleep on the bed. Neither would give in, so in the end, they had to squeeze onto the tiny bed. After arguing for a while, they were exhausted and finally fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Li Shin suddenly woke up. Turning to side, he saw Jae Kyung lying right behind him. Her face was rubbing against his back. Jae Kyung even carelessly gave him a long trail of saliva. Li Shin wanted to hate her but couldn't, because when he looked at Jae Kyung's face sleeping like a puppy, he found her strangely adorable. As for Jae Kyung's parents, although they were very happy that their daughter and son-in-law had come home to visit, they still felt uneasy about the two. Finally, they decided to sneak in to check. When they reached the door of the room, they witnessed their daughter sleeping very ugly. Jae Kyung's mother gently walked in, but that action startled the crown prince awake. Then Jae Kyung also woke up. When Jae Kyung realized that she was hugging Li Shin tightly and wouldn't let go, she panicked and kicked him away. Jae Kyung's parents offered to invite the crown prince to sleep in their room, but he refused. In the end, one person was on the bed, the other on the floor. After a while of tossing and turning, the two gradually fell asleep. Early the next morning, Li Shin was delighted to see Jae Kyung's parents preparing breakfast. Not long after, the couple went to the garden to pick vegetables to eat. For Li Shin, the knowledge he learned in the palace was extremely profound, but when he returned here, everything became new and strange. It was the first time in his life that the crown prince enjoyed such a simple experience. Then, the whole family gathered together to enjoy breakfast in a warm and happy atmosphere. Because they had slept in the same bed last night, Jae Kyung was daydreaming the whole day after going to school. Jae Kyung suddenly realized that she had been fascinated by Li Shin's back without realizing it. That evening, after returning home, after finishing the bowl of noodles cooked by Jae Kyung, the crown prince took the initiative to wash the dishes. Seeing his back, Jae Kyung was so attracted that she could not control herself. She quietly approached the crown prince and suddenly hugged him from behind. Her face was stiff, as if she had not yet woken up from a dream. That sudden action startled Li Shin. He quickly pushed her away. After dinner, the whole family sat down to play games. For Li Shin, this bustling family atmosphere was a completely new experience, because from a young age, he had never enjoyed such happy moments. Even though he was the crown prince, he could not win against Jae Kyung's parents and younger brother in the game, and then the punishment for the loser was to be slapped. Poor Jae Kyung, she had an ordinary identity, so her parents did not hold back and hit her straight down. On the contrary, Li Shin was extremely favored. Even though they were elders, Jae Kyung's parents did not dare to hit Li Shin too hard, so the slap was even lighter than scratching an itch. Seeing this unfair scene, Jae Kyung could not help but feel dissatisfied. She yelled continuously and complained because it was unfair. After 3 days and 2 nights of staying at Jae Kyung's parents' house, the young couple had gotten used to being together, so when they returned to the palace, they couldn't sleep. They tossed and turned, sat down, and stood up, going in and out of the room countless times. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, Jae Kyung and Li Shin opened the door and walked out to the living room, sat down, and talked to each other. After a while, Li Shin suddenly spoke up. Li Shin teased Jae Kyung that if she wanted to touch his back, she should just say so, touching him while Li Shin knew, so don't attack by surprise. Hearing that, Jae Kyung was about to hug him when she was suddenly harassed by a servant, over and over again, once and twice, to the point that before she could even touch Li Shin, Shin, he quickly dodged. The next morning, Li Shin sat down and recounted the events that happened at Chae Kyung's family. After hearing about the simple life at Chae Kyung's house, the queen mother could not hide her excitement. She kept asking more questions. In the middle of the happy conversation, the crown prince unconsciously called the queen was mother. Immediately, Li Shin was severely scolded by the queen. The queen did not allow him to let trivial feelings overwhelm his position and responsibilities. Those words made Li Shin extremely upset. Seeing Li Shin sad, Chae Kyung could not bear to let him be sad forever, so she tried to make fun of him. There was no such thing as riding a bicycle in the palace, but Chae Kyung did not care about those rules of etiquette. Somehow, she pulled out a bicycle and rode around everywhere. After Chae Kyung said that she would study harder in the future, the crown prince immediately asked for her own a bicycle for convenience. The next morning, the queen mother unexpectedly gave Chae Kyung a bicycle. It had the shape of a golden beetle that she loved very much. The queen mother told Chae Kyung to keep the car safe. When the two arrived at school, Chae Kyung was surprised by an unbelievable sight. All the female students in the school were wearing uniform skirts combined with sweatpants, their hair tied high to one side, just like Chae Kyung's style. Her friends around said that Chae Kyung was now a hot girl and the ideal model for female students to follow. This made Chae Kyung a little excited. She felt proud that she had become an involuntary fashion icon. Having lived within the framework of etiquette for so many years, it turned out that the crown prince also had times when he wanted to rebel. One day, he escaped to the attic to find a quiet corner. The palace soldiers frantically searched for Li Shin everywhere, but it only took Chae Kyung a few minutes to discover his hiding place. The reason was very simple, because Chae Kyung's house also had an attic just like this, and she was very familiar with this type of hiding. The two sat and talked for a while, but before they could enjoy the peaceful moment, the soldiers came searching again. Chae Kyung shouted loudly for everyone to come, but Li Shin quickly pulled her back. The two struggled for a while and accidentally fell on top of each other. Immediately, the atmosphere became awkward. It seemed that in just a moment, the two would be caught up in this sweet moment. But right at the climax, Li Shin's phone rang. As expected, the caller was Min Hyo Rin. It turned out that the rich kids wanted Chae Kyung to join the horse racing club with them. Who knows what they were planning, but Chae Kyung wasn't worried at all. She wanted to happily go with her husband. At the same time, Min Hyo Rin was deliberately provoking Prince Lee Yul. Inviting the crown princess to the club was actually just a trap. The purpose was to let Chae Kyung witness the closeness between Min Hyo Rin and Li Shin. While the two princes were riding, a small accident suddenly happened. Immediately, all the palace maids and guards ran towards Li Shin in panic to check if he was injured. Meanwhile, Lee Yul was lying alone on the ground and no one cared about him. Because Chae Kyung couldn't squeeze into the crowd surrounding Li Shin, she turned to ask Lee Yul. Seeing this scene, Li Shin couldn't hide his discomfort. Even though he knew that his marriage with Chae Kyung was just an arrangement and he didn't think he would be with her for long, but seeing Chae Kyung being so close to Lee Yul made him feel uncomfortable at all. While Chae Kyung was wandering around the palace, she accidentally opened the door to Li Shin's photo gallery. Inside, he was sitting quietly. He was lost in his own thoughts. Only then did Chae Kyung realize that his hand was injured. She was worried and wanted to help him, but he flatly refused. But Chae Kyung accidentally saw a picture of Min Hyo Rin hanging on the wall. Before she could take a closer look, her husband scolded her and chased her out. Chae Kyung had no choice but to rush out of the room. Meanwhile, due to the king's poor health, the diplomatic trip to Thailand was handed over to the crown prince. The king also suggested that Li Shin and Chae Kyung should go abroad together. Although Chae Kyung tried to make peace, Li Shin remained cold. He flatly refused. Because Li Shin was jealous of Chae Kyung every day, he felt uncomfortable every time he saw her. Finally, the decision was made. The crown prince would go to Thailand alone, while Chae Kyung would stay behind to continue studying and practicing the rules. During the time Li Shin was away, Chae Kyung missed him terribly. She was worried, but there was nothing she could do but wait silently. To ease her longing, Chae Kyung diligently sewed a set of clothes for the teddy bear he often hugged. Besides, she could only listen to news about him through the servant. Chae Kyung knew that Li Shin was still angry about the horse fall the day before, so she did not dare to contact him directly. Meanwhile, Lee Yul had more and more feelings for Chae Kyung. If it were not for his father's early death, the person in Chae Kyung's husband position now would have been him. Not wanting to hide it from his mother, Lee Yul frankly admitted that he liked Chae Kyung. Lee Yul knew that in the eyes of many people, Chae Kyung was not an ideal daughter-in-law, but he did not care about that. On the contrary, Lee Yul's feelings for Chae Kyung grew deeper and deeper. Back to the clumsy girl. Even though she promised the queen mother to be careful, Chae Kyung could not control her curiosity. One day, out of curiosity, Chae Kyung climbed into the yellow beetle to test drive it. But because of her carelessness, Chae Kyung caused a collision, causing this beloved antique car to be damaged beyond repair. As a result, Chae Kyung was scolded by the queen for vandalism. Hearing that the queen mother personally visited Chae Kyung, the queen mother did not want Chae Kyung to be too scared by this, so she gently comforted her and said that the car was too old. It should have been abandoned a long time ago. The queen mother also told Chae Kyung about Li Shin's relationship with her. The queen Queen Mother said that during the trip, Li Xin called to ask about her many times and mentioned Chaekyung quite a bit. As for the Crown Prince, he was extremely busy with a series of meetings and important diplomatic ceremonies in Thailand. At the same time, the scheming Min Yo-rin also appeared here. Min Yo-rin had carefully researched Li Xin's hotel and schedule. Her eyes were full of calculation. It was obvious that Min Yo-rin was up to something. Meanwhile, the maid reported that Chaekyung had called Li Xin several times to ask about him, but Li Xin had no intention of calling back or giving her any news. Even when Chaekyung took the initiative to contact her, he didn't pick up. Finally, when he saw Min Yo-rin appear near his residence, he immediately turned off his phone. Not long after, he took the initiative to meet her. Li Xin seriously told Min Yo-rin that she should stop doing this. He was married now, and with his position, he couldn't do anything else. But Min Yo-rin didn't give up easily. She started to talk about her suffering. She asked him how long she had to wait before she could publicly become his girlfriend. Then she stood up and pretended to leave, but Li Xin pulled her back. Then they went out together all over the city. As expected, the happy moments between the two were secretly captured by reporters. After being helped by some drivers to escape from the reporters, they continued to walk around the streets and happily enjoyed their time together. To avoid being followed by reporters, the two even went to a motel together to hide temporarily. Finally, when seeing Min Yo-rin off at the airport, she was looking for a way to bring more allies to her side. Li Xin received a goodbye kiss from her, but whether he wanted to or not, he still had to return to his original life and position. At home, because Chaekyung could not contact the Crown Prince, she was too upset with his behavior. So Chaekyung asked Li Yul to take her out to relieve herself. After that, Chaekyung left her phone at school, causing everyone to look for her everywhere, but could not find her. Everything was in chaos. The female lead's family also called to find her, but at this time, Chaekyung was confiding in Li Yul. Chaekyung said that she had fallen in love with the male lead. Not only that, Chaekyung also said that she easily fell in love with others. If Chaekyung had met Li Yul before, she might have fallen in love with him. Hearing these words from Chaekyung, Li Yul felt even more upset because he loved her. Meanwhile, the queen received news that the crown princess went out with a son, but at the moment they could not determine who that son was. Li Yul's mother called him. She asked Li Yul to quickly bring the crown princess back to the palace. She also told Li Yul not to let outsiders find out because they were currently in a complicated situation. As for Li Xin, the bodyguards found him at the airport after seeing Min Yo-rin off to the plane. At this time, the crown prince only had 30 minutes left to return to the press conference, and the traffic outside was not good. Therefore, the police supported Li Xin and the two bodyguards. At the press conference, it was almost time to start, but the crown prince still hadn't returned. They had to show clips related to the Korean royal family and pictures of Li Xin to prolong the time. On the way back, although he was riding a motorbike, the crown prince still encountered many difficulties. Because there was a group of elephants crossing the road, everyone had to make way for them. In the end, Li Xin was forced to leave his motorbike and switch to traveling by river. After a difficult and arduous journey, he was able to return on time to attend the press conference. The press conference went smoothly and ended well. The image of the crown prince wearing a traditional Thai flower bouquet received love and enthusiastic support from the public. As for Chaekyung, after being brought back to the palace by Li Yul, she was immediately scolded by the queen for leaving the palace without permission. The queen did not stop there and scolded Li Yul as well. Finally, the queen ordered the crown princess to be punished. From now on, Chaekyung will not be allowed to leave the palace without the queen's consent. Witnessing this scene, Li Yul felt extremely heartbroken for Chaekyung. When he returned to his mother, Li Yul frankly told her to make him the emperor, because Li Yul could not bear to see the girl he loved being tortured like that. Meanwhile, during the visit of the British prince to the royal palace, everyone in the palace stood up to welcome the distinguished guest because the crown prince had not returned yet. Then Chaekyung was assigned to take the British prince on a tour of the palace. However, she was not good at English, so she was very worried. At this moment, Li Yul suddenly appeared. He greeted the British prince. Then, Li Yul and Chaekyung together took the distinguished guest around the palace. Chaekyung took Li Yul to the parties. Chaekyung even sat with the musicians to play the flute to entertain the guests, although in reality, she could not play it well. However, the visit between the two royal families still ended well with a strengthened cooperative relationship. But behind the splendor of this royal family, the family tradition is somewhat chaotic. The past story also contains a lot of heartache. Li Yul's mother used to love Li Xin's father, but because of her ambition for power, she married her lover's brother to become queen. Unexpectedly, her husband died early, causing the position of queen to still not belong to her. Returning to the palace, Li Yul's mother began to find ways to use the past love affair to put pressure on the king. From there, forcing him to help her and her son. The purpose was to help Prince Li Yul restore his old position. As for Chaekyung, she was too tired from what was happening, partly because she missed Li Xin, partly because of the pressure from everything around her. Chaekyung skipped meals for several days. Finally, the crown prince's diplomatic trip ended. When he returned, he saw his wife standing absent-mindedly outside the door. Li Shin immediately realized that Chaekyung was having trouble. To break the tense atmosphere, Li Shin took the initiative to tease her that she should have run to hug her husband when he returned. Hearing that, Chaekyung cried and scolded him for being hateful. He was heartless and always made her uncomfortable. In the face of Chaekyung's reproach, Li Shin finally couldn't help but hug her. He gently promised that next time they would go together. Since childhood, Li Shin was taught to always control his emotions. He couldn't carelessly express his feelings. Even though he wanted to, he rarely said what he was thinking. But when he saw the teddy bear that Chaekyung had made clothes for, he couldn't help but laugh happily. Li Shin wanted to give a gift to Chaekyung, but didn't dare to give it directly. He was sneaking around, as if he was doing something shady, obviously very pleased. But when Chaekyung happily thanked him for the gift, Li Shin immediately turned his back. He denied buying her a gift and said that the gift was arranged by a servant. However, no matter how Li Shin denied it, Chaekyung could still feel the warmth he had for her. Ever since the princess, Li Shin's older sister, returned from her charity trip, all the servants in the palace, including the crown prince, surrounded her. They paid all their attention to the princess. Chaekyung was ignored by everyone. This made Chaekyung extremely upset and frustrated because she felt like no one was paying attention to her anymore. Meanwhile, Li Yul's mother continued to meet with old acquaintances to discuss. They talked about a plan to help her son restore the throne. The intelligence officer then provided her with some photos taken in Thailand, including photos of the crown prince and Min Hyo Rin hanging out together. There were even photos of the two of them kissing. That night, the weather was cold. Chaekyung couldn't stand the cold while sitting in her room, so Chaekyung ran to the crown prince's room. In fact, Chaekyung just wanted to find an excuse to talk to him. After Li Shin gave her permission, Chaekyung did not hesitate to climb into his bed to find warmth. At this time, Chaekyung suddenly wondered if the person she was supposed to marry was Li Yul. Li Shin calmly confirmed that it was true. Then he joked a few words. He said that if Chaekyung felt regretful, there was still a chance to change. However, when Li Shin turned to look, Chaekyung had already fallen asleep soundly. Li Shin sighed softly and then gently pulled the blanket over her. But at that moment, the queen suddenly walked in, holding a newspaper in her hand. The queen's face was extremely angry. Seeing the two children lying in the same bed, she coldly said a few unpleasant words. However, the crown prince immediately objected that this was their private room. Why did the queen come in without notice? It turned out that the reason why the queen was angry was the article that appeared in a Thai magazine. The photo of the crown prince and Min Hyo Rin going out was widely circulated. The queen asked her son to give a clear explanation, then she left. Immediately after, Chaekyung also rushed back to her room. But when she saw the article and the intimate photos between Li Shin and Min Hyo Rin, she could no longer calm down. Chaekyung turned to ask Li Shin. Chaekyung hoped to receive an explanation, but Li Shin only coldly said that he had no obligation to explain to her. He also advised her not to be curious about such things, lest it affect her health. Hearing this, Chaekyung was so angry that her body trembled. She firmly replied that he did not need to worry about her. Li Shin also refused to give in and asked her why she did not eat or sleep, allowing herself to become thin. At this point, Chaekyung could not bear it anymore. She burst into tears and poured out all her feelings, because Chaekyung missed Li Shin so much that she couldn't eat or sleep. After saying that, Chaekyung turned and ran back to her room, leaving Li Shin standing there, stunned. As for the chance meeting in Thailand, Chaekyung didn't think much of it, but Min Hyo Rin frankly admitted that it wasn't a coincidence. She purposely went to Thailand to meet the crown prince. Min Hyo Rin also declared that she didn't need the position of crown princess. She just wanted Crown Prince Li Shin's heart. Because she hadn't eaten or slept for many days, Chaekyung fainted before she could finish her story. Li Shin immediately walked over and carried her back to her room. Then Li Yul went to visit Chaekyung. Seeing that she was still weak, he took her out to the balcony to get some fresh air. Seeing Chaekyung's spirit so low, Li Yul couldn't help but feel sorry for her. He softly told her not to get sick. Seeing her like this, he also felt very heartbroken. Meanwhile, Li Shin entered the room but did not see Chaekyung. Stepping out onto the balcony, he immediately saw her chatting with Li Yul. He felt a little uncomfortable. Li Shin did not hesitate to approach and coldly blamed Chaekyung for being sick and sitting outside like this. Chaekyung turned around and complained that she was sick because of him. Hearing that, Li Shin did not say anything but just pulled her into the room and slammed the door shut. As a way to tease her, Li Shin also made provocative comments about Chaekyung being overweight. He said she needed to lose weight. After that, the two young men stood facing each other, the atmosphere between them more tense than ever. Li Shin bluntly warned Li Yul that you should not care too much about my wife. Outside the palace, when they heard that their daughter had fainted and was sick, Chaekyung's parents could not help but worry. The queen mother also knew about the matter, so she immediately called the two into the palace to visit her daughter-in-law. The queen mother was worried that Chae-kyung had not eaten for many days, so she told the two of them to bring Chae-kyung's favorite food. Then, Chae-kyung's parents wanted to ask the crown prince for permission to let their daughter go to their house for a few days. But this request was immediately rejected by Li Xin. He frankly said that although the queen mother had given permission, he was Chae-kyung's husband, and this was their things. Li Xin did not want the adults to interfere. In fact, the crown prince was worried that if he let Chae-kyung leave the palace, she would never come back to him again. Finally, Li Xin told Chae-kyung that he wanted to give her a common life, but to wait for him just 2 to 3 years. At that time, Li Xin would leave the position of crown prince, and Chae-kyung could do whatever she wanted. Then, Li Xin sat down to discuss palace matters with the king. He wanted to be recognized by the elders and the people. The crown prince wanted to become more mature. He seriously prepared for his plan to leave the throne. The crown prince did not want people to see him as a rash, immature person. Meanwhile, the queen mother was attentively listening to the princess talk about her charity trip. The queen mother looked at the photos taken all over the world and could not hide her admiration for her granddaughter. Since she was young, the queen mother had always lived in the palace, so she had never had the opportunity to travel here and there. To her, the things her granddaughter told her were new and interesting. As for the queen, when she heard that Li Yul's mother had received support, she could not help but worry. When meeting the sister-in-law, the queen did not hesitate to make a challenge. The queen wanted Li Yul's mother to let the children know about this competition. There was no need to secretly use tricks. Immediately after that, Li Yul's mother went to the queen mother and told her all the rumors that Li Xin had been involved in during the past time. A moment later, the servant ran to inform the crown prince that his grandmother was extremely angry about his incident in Thailand. At this time, Min Yo-rin called again. Although the servant tried to stop him, Li Xin still decided to go out to meet her. The two met at a bookstore. Here, Li Xin frankly said what was on his mind. After that, Li Xin firmly declared that he would not see her again. However, Min Yo-rin was still stubborn. She firmly refused to break up. At the cake-making class, Chae-kyung tried to make a beautiful cake. She intended to bring it to Li Xin's closet to give to him. But when she opened the closet, Chae-kyung was surprised to see another cake in it. While she was confused and didn't know what to do, Li Xin appeared. Without hesitation, he harshly refused Chae-kyung's gift. Meanwhile, the queen mother decided to restore the title to Li Yul's entire family. His father was posthumously awarded the title of king, his mother was awarded the title of queen, and Li Yul was also restored to his position as crown prince. The investiture ceremony was held as scheduled. However, during the meeting with the people, the king suddenly fainted before he could speak. This incident caused everyone to panic, except for Li Yul's mother. She secretly felt pleased in her heart. After the investiture ceremony, Prince Li Yul and his mother were officially allowed to return to the palace where they used to live. At the same time, the museum invited the queen mother to attend a charity ceremony. The queen mother wanted to go with Li Xin and his wife. However, because Li Xin had a previous schedule, only Chae-kyung went with her. Before leaving, Chae-kyung went into Li Xin's photo room to borrow a camera. She accidentally saw a box containing mementos related to Min Yo-rin. The box was kept very carefully and respectfully by Li Xin. When Li Xin returned to his room, he was surprised to see his wife coming out from inside, her face full of confusion. Seeing the box on the table, Li Xin immediately understood everything. It turned out that Chae-kyung had seen everything inside. Meanwhile, the queen mother and Chae-kyung had a very happy day visiting the charity area, but surprisingly, they saw Li Xin also there. Li Xin shyly explained that because the queen mother called, he couldn't help but listen. Chae-kyung heard that and immediately told Li Xin to go greet his grandmother, and she was tired, so she would go rest. Not long after, the queen mother suggested that the two of them go out with her. Chae-kyung was hesitant. She thought that doing so was not legal, but the queen mother just smiled and calmly said that the rules were set by humans, so they could be flexible. In the end, the three of them got into a car and happily went out. On the way, the queen mother and Chae-kyung sang excitedly, and then even made Li Xin and Chae-kyung dance to entertain her. The trip was very enjoyable. However, on the way back, the car suddenly had a problem that caused the engine to not start. The queen mother immediately told everyone to find a way to solve it themselves and not to call anyone from the palace for help. At that moment, a cart passed by and helped them bring the car back to the palace gate. The three people sitting in the cart felt extremely embarrassed. They returned under the curious eyes of the servants. Then, while Li Xin was sitting working, Chae-kyung kept running back and forth in the room. It was clear that she had something to ask, but was still hesitant. Chae-kyung was still angry about Min Yo-rin's letter. Li Xin saw her lingering around, so he finally allowed her to sit with him while working. But Chae-kyung asked a silly question. She told him that if the national seal was crushed into a peach seed and eaten, it would be delicious. After listening, Li Xin could only helplessly look at his wife. After asking all sorts of questions, Chae-kyung suddenly received a heartwarming sentence from her husband that he would feel lonely without her by his side. Hearing that, Chae-kyung happily left the room, her mood much better. Meanwhile, because the king had bought insurance from Chae-kyung's mother, when they heard that he was sick, a According to the insurance company's care policy, Chaekyung's parents were allowed to enter the palace to visit the king. They brought many gifts to give to the king. At the same time, Lee Yul's mother was officially promoted to queen. She regained her position in the palace. After failing to call the crown princess to her palace, the queen personally went to the East Palace to meet Chaekyung. Here, Lee Yul's mother bluntly tested and challenged Chaekyung in all sorts of ways about her studies and her lifestyle in the palace. The queen did not hesitate to criticize Chaekyung harshly for not focusing on her studies and for not adapting quickly to royal life. Fortunately, Lee Yul appeared at that moment, and he was able to rescue Chaekyung in time. Lee Yul did not want the girl he loved to be treated like that. He then took Chaekyung to the library, where the two talked for a long time. When he saw Chaekyung playing the zither, Prince Lee Yul's heart could not help but flutter. He recalled the moments when the two of them met and were together. He realized that her image had filled his heart without him knowing. The two continued to joke around happily, singing and dancing together. However, that scene accidentally caught the eyes of Li Xin, who was standing below and witnessing everything. At this time, rumors surrounding the crown prince spread more and more. It made both the queen and the queen mother worried. In addition, the king's illness became more and more serious. In the end, even though it was not yet the scheduled time, the queen mother still decided to speed up Li Xin and Chaekyung's love night, hoping to have a grandchild to hold soon. Immediately after that, the entire palace was excitedly preparing for this special night. Li Xin was prescribed medicine by the royal physicians, while Chaekyung was taken to a beauty salon and carefully taken care of by the maids. As for Lee Yul's mother, when she received the news that tonight was Li Xin's love's night, she immediately called Prince Lee Yul to talk. Lee Yul's mother said that Li Xin's mother must be worried about her position, so she wanted to push things forward so quickly. Hearing this, Lee Yul was extremely angry. He did not want to accept this. Lee Yul immediately wanted to run away to stop them. However, the bodyguards were arranged right in front of the room's door, making it impossible for Lee Yul to leave, even if he wanted to. Meanwhile, after tricking Li Xin and Chaekyung into the room, the maids immediately left and locked the door from the outside. At this point, both of them had guessed the elder's intentions. Inside the room, the heater was turned off, making the room gradually cold. There was only one blanket on the sleeping mat. The weather was cold, so Li Xin told Chaekyung to just crawl under the blanket and sleep. She didn't need to be shy. After all, they had slept in the same bed twice before. However, Chaekyung's headdress was too big and cumbersome, so she didn't know how to take it off. Even if she wanted to lie down, she couldn't. Li Xin had to help Chaekyung take off the headdress. Then, the room began to echo with Chaekyung's painful groans, causing the palace maids outside to speculate freely and then let them imagine all sorts of things. After finishing the headdress, the next problem was the cumbersome national dress, which rustled every time she moved. Li Xin coldly told Chaekyung to take off the dress. Hearing that, Chaekyung immediately objected, asking why Li Xin made her take off her clothes. Outside, the palace maids only vaguely heard the words "take off" and "take off clothes," causing them to immediately blush and secretly look at each other in embarrassment. Inside the room, Li Xin couldn't help but feel embarrassed. After all, he had already had a lot of feelings for Chaekyung, a young man like the crown prince, sharing a blanket with his wife at night like this, plus the effects of the tonic. How could he avoid the desires that arose in his heart? He turned around and around, finally sighing and suggesting that Chaekyung just follow the wishes of an adult. Of course, Chaekyung immediately objected. After that, the two of them tried to restrain themselves in every way. They exercised, played cards, and tried all sorts of things in the world to forget this awkward atmosphere. In the end, because they were too tired to stay awake, they both ended the long, tiring night with a short kiss. Outside, the palace maids quickly reported to the queen mother and the queen that the great event had been a success. The elders were extremely happy. They happily congratulated each other, without knowing that in that room, Chaekyung was sleeping soundly and happily. Meanwhile, Li Xin was lying down counting sheep, hoping for the morning to come soon. The next morning, the two unconsciously hugged each other and slept soundly. When they woke up, they both immediately opened their eyes. They were startled and screamed loudly, then argued about who crossed the line. Li Xin said that yesterday he only had a 1-second kiss with her. At that time, Li Xin couldn't control himself. Hearing that, Chaekyung was so angry that her face turned red. She immediately left Li Xin and ran straight back to her room. But as soon as she stepped out onto the balcony, Chaekyung ran into Lee Yul, who was waiting there. Lee Yul worriedly asked Chaekyung if she was okay. Hearing Chaekyung say she was okay, he immediately hugged her. But right after that, Li Xin suddenly appeared. He immediately pulled his wife out of Lee Yul's arms. Not stopping there, Li Xin coldly scolded Lee Yul. Then Chaekyung and Li Xin argued again. Li Xin was annoyed by Chang's attitude. When he kissed her, she showed her hatred, but when she was with Lee Yul, she was extremely comfortable. Li Xin was so angry that he chased Chaekyung away. Then, Chaekyung went to find Lee Yul to ask why he hugged her this morning. At this time, Lee Yul Yul also did not want to hide it from Chae Kyung anymore. He seriously confessed his feelings that he loved her. Before, Lee Yul did not know that he had an engagement with her. The position of crown prince should now belong to him, but was taken by Li Shin. Lee Yul will take back what is rightfully his. As long as Chae Kyung marries Lee Yul, he is willing to take care of her for the rest of his life. Not long after, Lee Yul met Min Hyo Rin and told her about Li Shin's love night. He said heartbrokenly that he couldn't stop this even if he wanted to. Then Lee Yul asked Min Hyo Rin if she was still confident that she would win Li Shin's heart. Min Hyo Rin still firmly replied that she hadn't really started yet. How could say who won or lost? At this time, photos of Li Shin and Min Hyo Rin's trip in Thailand had begun to spread. Chae Kyung's friends were extremely angry. They immediately went to find Min Hyo Rin and threatened her not to take someone else's husband. That night, when Chae Kyung returned to her room, she found a stack of photos on the table. All of them were of Li Shin and Min Hyo Rin in Thailand. Even photos of the two kissing were printed out. At the same time, Li Shin's family sat down to discuss the photos that were causing a stir. Everyone in the palace agreed that it was best not to let Chae Kyung see those photos, but they did not expect that she had seen them before. The next morning, when she went to school, Chae Kyung's attitude had changed significantly. Chae Kyung looked sad, and especially when she saw Min Hyo Rin, that feeling was even more obvious because Chae Kyung's mind was still haunted by the photos she received last night. Realizing this, Lee Yul called Chae Kyung out to talk privately. He tried to convince Chae Kyung that Li Shin's feelings for her were not love, but just pity. On the contrary, Lee Yul truly loved her. Finally, seeing that Chae Kyung was too tired and pressured, he decided to take her out to help her feel more comfortable. The two went to the riverbank together. Here, Chae Kyung could no longer hold back her emotions. She burst into tears and fell on Lee Yul's shoulder. Chae Kyung sobbed and told about the suffering she had endured. Lee Yul then took her to a music hall to relax, then continued to the amusement park. The afternoon passed in a happy atmosphere, but at night, Chae Kyung decided to tell Lee Yul to go home first, and she wanted to stay a little longer. After that, Chae Kyung wandered around alone. Afraid of being recognized, she even wore a helmet to hide her identity. Meanwhile, when he learned that Chae Kyung had not returned home, Li Shin immediately became worried. He immediately called Lee Yul to ask where she was, but Lee Yul did not know either. Feeling that something was wrong, Li Shin rushed back to Chae Kyung's room. Seeing the photos of him and Min Hyo Rin in Chae Kyung's room, his anxiety reached its peak. Li Shin immediately went to find Lee Yul and asked if he could guess where Chae Kyung was. But Lee Yul did not have an answer either. There was no other way but for the two of them to split up to look for her. Li Shin searched everywhere he could, but still could not find Chae Kyung. Finally, Lee Yul suddenly remembered the library, the place he had taken her to before. Lee Yul immediately ran there, and sure enough, Chae Kyung was sitting alone in the library. Seeing Chae Kyung, Lee Yul did not hesitate to suggest that if she wanted, he could take her out of the palace immediately. At that moment, Li Shin also went upstairs. Seeing Chae Kyung being held by his brother, Li Shin immediately rushed over. Li Shin hit Prince Lee Yul and dragged Chae Kyung back to the palace. After leaving Lee Yul's place, on the way back, the two stopped to talk. Li Shin expressed that she did not know how much he had worried about her. He also advised Chae Kyung not to be sad about those photos. Chae Kyung gently replied that she did not care about that anymore. Chae Kyung understood her position and situation, but because of the way Li Shin treated Chae Kyung well, she had illusions. However, at this moment, she did not want to expect anything more. Chae Kyung agreed to wait for 3 years and then get a divorce. Chae Kyung's words made Li Shin angry. The two continued to argue about the divorce. Li Shin said that he had been lonely for the past 19 years, but since meeting Chae Kyung, everything in him had changed a lot. Li Shin admitted that what he really wanted was to have her by his side forever. After releasing their feelings, the two quietly hugged each other for a long time, as if to confirm their feelings for each other. After making up, the two shared happy moments together, confiding and joking together. But not long after, the story of Li Shin beating Lee Yul in just one night spread throughout the palace. Even the outside press reported the incident. After hearing about the story, Lee Yul's mother immediately called the queen to scold her and accused her of not being able to raise her child properly. Lee Yul understood that it was his mother who had spread the news, but he could not stop her. Lee Yul now feels extremely depressed about his situation. The next day, Lee Yul does not go to school. Chae Kyung is worried about him and goes to see him, but he refuses to see her. Meanwhile, Chae Kyung's parents at home hear that Li Shin is violent and are extremely worried about their daughter. They do not know if Chae Kyung's life in the palace will be okay. Chae Kyung's parents imagine all kinds of situations and things related to Li Shin that could torture their daughter, but after thinking carefully, they both realize that their daughter is not an easy person to being bullied. Therefore, the person who really needs to worry is probably the crown prince, not Chae Kyung. While everyone in the palace is buzzing about the violence and worried that Li Shin's image will be affected, Chae Kyung is haunted by something else. Chae Kyung remembers that Li Shin teased her for being overweight, so Chae Kyung is determined to work out to have a small waist. Not only practicing alone, Chae Kyung also dragged the palace maids in the palace and asked them to practice with her day and night. Not long after, Chae Kyung followed Li Shin to a meeting at the French embassy. The two appeared very happy together. This trip was actually to dispel all rumors related to the conflict between them and their husband. While everyone was engrossed in listening to the concert, Chae Kyung fell asleep in the theater. She slept very soundly and comfortably. Li Shin sat next to her and couldn't help but feel embarrassed towards his wife. He tried to wake Chae Kyung up, but no matter how he shook her, she still couldn't open her eyes. After that, Chae Kyung had to go to the bathroom to wash her face to wake up, but as soon as she walked, she slipped and broke the sole of her shoe. Seeing this scene, Li Shin could only sigh. Then he broke the sole of the other shoe so she could walk more easily. Next, the two participated in an interview with reporters. They asked about the violence between Li Shin and Li Yule, then about the rumors that he and his wife had a conflict. To dispel the rumors, Li Shin immediately kissed Chae Kyung on the cheek in front of the press, causing photographers to rush to take pictures. Then, at the Queen Mother's request, the whole family gathered to eat and take souvenir photos. The meal took place in a happy but forced atmosphere because everyone had their own intentions. While eating, the clumsy Chae Kyung accidentally bit her tongue, causing her mouth to bleed. Seeing this, Li Shin immediately stood up to get medicine, but at that moment, Li Yule also quickly left the table. He took a handkerchief to wrap ice and ran to the other table to give it to Chae Kyung. Li Yule's hasty action of running to give ice to Chae Kyung made all the adults at the table feel that something was wrong. After the meal, everyone sat down to confide and share stories in the palace. Meanwhile, Li Yule suddenly said sarcastic words about the royal palace, about its meaningless existence, as if it were all just a prearranged play. Immediately after that, Li Yule and Li Shin had a heated argument about the value of the royal family, as well as the real role of the royal palace for the people. Neither would give in. The two argued until the king finally had to intervene to stop the argument. Then Li Yule went to the balcony to talk to Chae Kyung. While the two were talking, Li Shin suddenly appeared. He didn't say anything, but just quietly walked over, then grabbed Chae Kyung's hand and pulled her inside. Before leaving, Li Shin gave his brother a sharp look like a knife, as if he wanted to assert his sovereignty. Then Li Shin took Chae Kyung to the beach. People often say that after the rain, the sky will clear up, and when you truly love each other, you can go anywhere, as long as you are together. The two had fun moments on the beach. They took pictures together and enjoyed truly happy moments. At this time, Li Shin no longer had the appearance of a serious crown prince, but he became a young, cheerful, and energetic young man. After playing around, Li Shin took Chae Kyung to Hankum, a place where royal family members often come to relax in the summer. The main goal of this trip was to watch the sunrise over the sea. So that night, the two decided to stay at Hankum. In a romantic atmosphere, like a honeymoon, Li Shin and Chae Kyung went to the supermarket together. They bought groceries and cooked by themselves. With his experience in military training, Li Shin proved to be quite proficient in cooking. The meal took place in an extremely warm atmosphere, just like a young couple enjoying their private time together. The next morning, both of them woke up early in the hope of watching the sunrise over the sea. Unfortunately, the weather was not favorable, so the plan was cancelled. Not wanting to waste time, the two decided to return to the palace. They opened all the photos they had taken during the trip and looked at them together, then laughed and joked happily. In another development, Chae Kyung's parents decided to buy a car for their daughter. Since Chae Kyung damaged the Queen Mother's car, they felt the need to give her a new car for more convenient travel. At the same time, since becoming in-laws with the royal family, Chae Kyung's mother's insurance business has been more prosperous than ever. Many customers called to buy insurance from her, making her quickly become the queen of insurance. Thanks to that, her income also increased significantly. Meanwhile, the king began to waver because of Li Yule's mother's words. Combined with Li Shin's recent disruptive actions, the king gradually lost hope in this son. As for Min Yo-rin, after many times she tried to hold on but did not receive Li Shin's love, she still could not bear to give up. She was so stubborn that she could not accept the truth. In the end, she did something foolish. Min Yo-rin took sleeping pills to forget her sadness forever and was immediately taken to the emergency room. Hearing the news, Li Shin immediately went to the hospital to visit Min Yo-rin. But when he stood in front of his ex-girlfriend, he felt extremely uncomfortable. Min Yo-rin's stubbornness became more and more frightening, while Li Shin himself had clearly determined his feelings and he wanted to end everything with her. In the end, after criticizing her foolish actions, Li Shin resolutely left. Not long after, Chae Kyung also went to the hospital to visit Min Hyo-rin because she was a bit worried, but Chae Kyung was chased away by Min Hyo-rin. Here, Li Yule's mother also came to see her and did not hesitate to say that sooner or later, Li Shin would be dethroned. At that time, he would return to Min Hyo-rin. Immediately after Min Hyo-rin's foolish incident, the press began to report it everywhere. The entire royal family was in turmoil because of this incident. The king was furious and scolded Li Shin. At this point, he could no longer keep calm. Despite Chae Kyung's dissuasion, Li Shin decided to leave the royal palace. In the end, he went to Min Hyo-rin to settle things. At the meeting place, place. Min Hyo-rin showed an apologetic expression. She kept apologizing and asserted that she had no intention of letting things go this far. Li Shin did not say much. He only left one sentence, that this time she had gone too far. After saying that, Li Shin coldly left. After leaving the palace, Li Shin went to a bar with his friends from the horse racing club. However, while sitting in that noisy space, the king's words still echoed in his head, making him feel extremely tired and pressured. In his group of friends, there was a person who had secretly loved Min Hyo-rin for a long time. When he heard the news of her disappearance, this person was extremely upset and immediately went to Li Shin to question him. He angrily said that Li Shin had gone too far. If he no longer loved Min Hyo-rin, then let her go. But the atmosphere became more tense when Li Shin's group of friends got into a fight with another group of young people. The incident was so serious that the police had to enter the palace to get information, causing the entire royal family to fall into chaos. This also made Chae Kyung extremely worried. Since Li Shin left, she had been restless, hoping that he would be safe. Chae Kyung waited until Li Shin returned to the palace to ask him what had happened, but Li Shin refused. Unable to bear it any longer, Chae Kyung decided to go straight to Li Shin's room. She blamed him for deciding to be together, but he was still trying to endure it alone. Chae Kyung also expressed that she was so worried about him that she couldn't do anything all day, afraid that with his hot temper, he would cause a big problem. After saying that, Chae Kyung angrily went back to her room, but as soon as she was about to leave, he held her back and hugged her tightly, not wanting to let go. At the same time, after learning about Min Hyo-rin's foolishness, the queen summoned her to the palace. The queen explained the situation in the royal family and affirmed that she knew Min Hyo-rin was a girl with a strong will. If Min Hyo-rin agreed, the royal palace was willing to help her to have better learning conditions. Min Hyo-rin listened quietly. She understood that Li Shin's mother wanted to separate him and Chae Kyung, but Min Hyo-rin did not agree with this because she knew Li Shin no longer loved her. When leaving the palace, Min Hyo-rin accidentally met Chae Kyung. Then the two sat down to talk. During the conversation, Min Hyo-rin asked Chae Kyung to care for and take care of Li Shin more, because he was the one who needed to be loved the most at this time. Then Li Yul's mother also came to Min Hyo-rin. She still hoped to pull Min Hyo-rin to her side, with the goal of destroying Li Shin's family. However, at this time, Min Hyo-rin understood everything. She accepted to give up because Min Hyo-rin knew that Li Shin's feelings for her were completely gone. Min Hyo-rin frankly expressed that she did not want to participate in this war anymore. The only thing she wanted right now was to focus on her career and become a good ballet artist. Min Hyo-rin then attended a press interview where she cleared up the whole thing. Min Hyo-rin admitted that she was just a classmate of the crown prince. She also confirmed that he had confessed to her, but she was the one who rejected him because she wanted to pursue her dream of ballet. She affirmed that she had given up her chance herself and that Chae Kyung had not fought for her, as the press had made up. Meanwhile, after Chae Kyung's mother bought her a new car, Chae Kyung began practicing driving under her husband's guidance, but her driving skills were truly disastrous. Chae Kyung's comprehension of driving was not much better, which scared Li Shin many times. The two of them drove around in circles, but no matter how much they practiced, there was no progress. Li Shin was both frustrated and helpless, but in his eyes, his feelings for her grew deeper and deeper. Not long after that, Li Yul asked Li Shin's mother for permission to hold a party outside the palace, with the reason being to celebrate his birthday and also to congratulate everyone on completing their course. Li Shin, Chae Kyung, and her group of friends were also invited to attend. Meanwhile, Li Yul's mother realized that the queen was actively investigating and at the same time began to get many clues about the truth. Li Yul's mother was afraid that the truth would be exposed, so she immediately ordered some people to leave the country to avoid being discovered. On the other hand, Li Yul also quietly went to meet many people in the palace, especially those who knew his father. Li Yul's goal was very clear. Li Yul wanted to overthrow Li Shin's throne. After that, the entire group of young people went on vacation as planned. Chae Kyung decided to drive herself, taking her 3 close friends with her. Meanwhile, Li Shin went alone, and the others also moved separately. However, because Chae Kyung was a terrible driver, it took them more than 3 hours to get there, so the group had to wait for a long time. As soon as they met, Li Shin immediately complained that Chae Kyung was taking too long. Meanwhile, Li Yul intentionally walked slower than Chae Kyung because he was worried that something might happen to her on the way. When the group arrived at the hotel to check in, they realized that there were limited rooms, so all the boys had to share one room. The girls also shared one room, and the remaining room was reserved for Li Shin and Chae Kyung. Then Chae Kyung quickly went into the room to get her clothes to take a shower. Suddenly, Li Shin walked in. He made her panic and quickly hide in the wardrobe. From inside the wardrobe, Chae Kyung witnessed Li Shin taking off his clothes to take a shower. Although she tried hard to remind herself not to look, her eyes still stared at him. Chae Kyung just sat sat there waiting in the wardrobe until she fell asleep without realizing it. After finishing the shower, Li Shin walked out and immediately witnessed Chae-kyung falling out of the wardrobe. Li Shin was extremely horrified by the situation. Although Chae-kyung said that she didn't see anything, the expression on her face completely betrayed her words. Li Shin felt extremely embarrassed by the situation, but even though he was angry, he couldn't do anything to his troublesome wife. The next morning, when Li Shin woke up, he accidentally found a video camera on the table. He opened it out of curiosity to watch. Li Shin was stunned when he saw the scene where his wife had made fun of him. In the video, Chae-kyung tied his hair and put lipstick on his face while he was sleeping, making him extremely angry. He immediately thought of recording another video to get revenge. However, when Li Shin was about to be naughty, his eyes were suddenly attracted to Chae-kyung. Unable to control himself any longer, he leaned down to kiss her. That moment was accidentally recorded on the camera. Meanwhile, among the young people who were happily attending the birthday party, serious problems related to the crown prince's position began to appear. The elders and high-ranking officials in the royal court sat together. They discussed the series of incidents that had happened to Crown Prince Li Shin in the past. Many opinions said that, compared to Li Shin, Li Yul seemed more suitable to become the future emperor. Even the emperor began to waver. He admitted that he felt more and more that Li Yul was more suitable to succeed the throne than his own son. Meanwhile, after waking up, Chae-kyung immediately took out her video camera to tease Li Shin in front of her friends. She eagerly opened the screen, thinking that she would have some fun. However, the image that appeared was of Chae-kyung sleeping soundly and being secretly kissed by Li Shin. Both of them were immediately extremely embarrassed by the constant teasing. At the birthday party, the atmosphere was extremely lively. Everyone blew out the candles, ate the cake, and raised their glasses to celebrate. In the middle of the party, Min Hyo-rin reminded Li Shin that he was allergic to peach champagne, so he shouldn't drink it. She then recounted the old memories of when Li Shin was allergic and how he reacted. Min Hyo-rin then asked if Li Shin had ever told his wife about his peanut allergy. At this point, Li Shin calmly replied that he had never told her. Hearing this, Chae-kyung couldn't help but feel sad and disappointed. She felt that the gap between her and Li Shin was too big, to the point that she didn't even know the little things about him. Not stopping there, Chae-kyung accidentally heard a conversation between Li Shin and Min Hyo-rin. It was about his study abroad plan. Chae-kyung was not in that plan. Feeling disappointed, she sadly left. While everyone was still chatting happily, Chae-kyung accidentally burned her hand. Li Yul immediately ran to get ice to apply to her. Chae-kyung also followed, but in the rush, the two accidentally fell on each other in front of the astonished eyes of their friends. Seeing Chae-kyung's worried attitude towards Li Yul, Li Shin couldn't hide his jealousy. Not only him, but even the friends around felt the atmosphere was a bit strange, but no one dared to speak up. After helping Li Yul bandage his wound, Chae-kyung sat down and confided in him about her thoughts about Li Shin. Li Yul listened quietly and then gently said that he had a gift to give her. Not giving Chae-kyung time to react, he leaned down and kissed her forehead. That scene accidentally caught the eye of Li Shin, who was standing far away and witnessing everything. Without hesitation, Li Shin walked over and dragged Chae-kyung straight back to her room. When he returned, Li Shin couldn't hide his anger. He blamed Chae-kyung for her behavior. That caused the two to once again fall into an endless argument. Chae-kyung frankly said that the reason she was close to Li Yul was because he was always sincere with her, but Li Shin was not, so the distance between the two could not be narrowed. These words were like adding fuel to the fire. Li Shin was extremely angry when he witnessed his wife being intimate with another man, but now she did not hesitate to praise Li Yul right in front of him. Unable to control herself anymore, he rushed over and forced a kiss on Chae-kyung, but immediately a slap landed on his face. Chae-kyung did not hesitate to strike hard, as if to confirm that she did not accept this coercion. The incident at the party had made the two even more distant, and after this incident, the atmosphere between them became more tense than ever. Li Shin knew clearly that Chae-kyung was still angry because he had forced a kiss on her. Even so, he still decided to go to Chae-kyung's room to make up. However, for someone who is always arrogant and has never had to bow down like Li Shin, especially when he is in the position of crown prince, begging or apologizing to someone has never been in his habit. So even though he tried, Li Shin did not know how to comfort his wife. As a result, the conversation turned into another argument. Both left in discomfort, each holding their hurt and frustration in their hearts, but neither would give in. Not long after, the Queen Mother summoned her grandchildren to talk. She asked about their trip, but everyone understood that her real purpose was to reconcile the conflict between Li Shin and Li Yul. The Queen Mother expressed her wish that if anything happened in the future, the two would help each other. Because she only had two grandsons, she did not want to see them confront each other like enemies. After that, Li Shin decided to return the box to Min Hyo-rin. He went to the ballet studio, where Min Hyo-rin was preparing for the performance. parents. At the same time, Jae-kyung and Lee Yul were also there. They came to cheer Min Hyo-rin on. But as soon as they entered, they both stopped suddenly. They saw Lee Shin on stage with Min Hyo-rin, looking intimate. This scene made Jae-kyung feel uncomfortable, but the truth was that Min Hyo-rin had just sprained her ankle and Lee Shin was just bending down to help her up. So misunderstanding followed misunderstanding. The distance between Lee Shin and Jae-kyung grew further and further. Lee Shin went to look for Jae-kyung in the palace, but couldn't find her. At this time, Jae-kyung had escaped to the attic, where Lee Shin often went whenever he needed some private space. Jae-kyung had too many thoughts in her heart, but she didn't know who to share them with. Meanwhile, Lee Shin went to the library, where he had seen Jae-kyung with Lee Yul the day before. While flipping through a book, he suddenly saw a photo. The photo was of his father and Lee Yul's mother, but the thing was that they looked extremely affectionate. This fact shocked Lee Shin deeply. He had never thought that his father and Lee Yul's mother had a special relationship. At the same time, everyone at school was busy preparing for the graduation ceremony. Jae-kyung and her friends went out to eat simple food. They tried to enjoy the little time before entering a new phase of their lives. Afterwards, Jae-kyung was picked up by Lee Shin and taken back to the palace. He knew that she had a lot on her mind, but he didn't want to force her to say it. So instead of asking, he decided to take her to her parents' house. When standing in front of Jae-kyung's house, Lee Shin gently told Jae-kyung to stay overnight with her parents. He also admitted that, in the current situation, this was the only thing he could do to make amends with her. He wanted her to have a comfortable time with her family, to not have to worry too much. Jae-kyung's whole family was extremely happy and joyful to be reunited. Jae-kyung's parents and younger brother could not hide their joy. They prepared a delicious meal to gather together. The dinner took place in a cozy atmosphere, completely different from the strict rules of the palace. However, when it was time to go to bed, Jae-kyung wanted to sleep overnight with her parents, like when she was a child, but her mother was more rational than everyone else in the family. The mother firmly asked Jae-kyung not to sleep over. Mom reminded her that although she was still small in her parents' eyes, Jae-kyung was now the crown princess. Therefore, Jae-kyung could not stay outside like that. Mom emphasized that once living in the palace, Jae-kyung needed to follow its rules. In the end, Jae-kyung had to say goodbye to her parents and return to the palace. When Jae-kyung arrived, it was already late, but the queen had been looking for her since the evening. As soon as she learned that Jae-kyung had returned, the queen did not hesitate to criticize her for violating the palace rules and regulations. Lee Shin spoke up to defend Jae-kyung. He tried to explain the situation to his mother, but after returning to his room, instead of comforting Jae-kyung, Lee Shin turned to blame her. With his usual cold personality, Lee Shin said that he had gone to the trouble of taking Jae-kyung home, but she did not know how to behave, causing him to be implicated. The conversation quickly turned into an argument between the two. Jae-kyung angrily walked out. She did not want to continue arguing any longer. Jae-kyung took the car out of the palace and drove straight out to get some fresh air. At that moment, Lee Yul was driving into the palace. Seeing Jae-kyung leaving, he immediately turned around and followed her. The two stopped by the riverside, where Jae-kyung could freely confide in her. Lee Yul patiently listened to her sadness and the pressure she was facing. After taking a walk to lighten her mood, the two returned. But at this time, Jae-kyung's car was stolen. However, not long after, the thief was arrested. She breathed a sigh of relief when she found her beloved car again. She thought that everything would end there, but the incident was reported in the newspaper the next morning. Not only was the thief arrested, but he also revealed to the press that he had caught the crown princess dating a strange man at night. This incident quickly caused a stir. The entire palace was shaken by its severity. Lee Shin was extremely angry when he learned that his wife was with Lee Yul. When Jae-kyung suggested that she confess the truth to the elders, Lee Shin immediately stopped her. He bluntly said that if she admitted to going with Lee Yul, they would both be in trouble. After thinking for a while, Jae-kyung had to lie. Jae-kyung insisted that she was with her father and no one else. Lee Yul was very worried about Jae-kyung and wanted to run over to clarify the truth. However, his mother stopped him. She said that he could not take the risk because he would become the king in the future. As Lee Yul said, if he had to choose between the throne and Jae-kyung, he would choose her. However, this scandal became more and more complicated. The press everywhere reported it continuously, along with countless opinions. This event created a huge controversy in public opinion. The palace was facing a serious crisis when the image of the royal family was heavily affected by the consecutive scandals from the crown prince and his wife. At school, Jae-kyung's friends also turned their backs on her. They did not hesitate to criticize and said that she was not worthy of being the crown princess. Faced with the constant criticism, Jae-kyung did not know what to do. She could only endure all the prejudice. In the midst of everything, Lee Yul went to see Jae-kyung. He affirmed that he was willing to give up everything to be with her. Lee Yul also wanted to come forward to clearly explain what happened by the river so that Jae-kyung would not suffer unfair criticism. However, Jae-kyung firmly did not not allow him to do so. Jae-kyung said that she wanted to protect Lee Yul this time because he was her only friend in the palace. Lee Yul had always been there to comfort her whenever she was in trouble. The palace then quickly made a correction in the press. They announced that the person Jae-kyung met by the river was her biological father. But the car thief did not give up. He once again firmly denied the assertion that the man who was with Jae-kyung that day was a young man, not her father. These accusations caused the elders in the palace to have a headache because the matter had now become too noisy and out of control. The queen realized something was wrong and personally went to see Jae-kyung. After hearing the truth that the person accompanying Jae-kyung was none other than Lee Yul, the queen immediately ordered absolute secrecy. Lee Shin's mother emphasized that this matter must not be revealed to anyone. At the same time, Lee Yul went to see Jae-kyung again. He said that there was a way to help her escape all the fatigue she was currently feeling. Lee Yul suggested that Jae-kyung could announce at the upcoming press conference that she wanted a divorce. After that, Jae-kyung would be able to leave the palace and return to normal life. She would no longer have to endure any pressure or constraints. Meanwhile, Lee Shin was still having a headache with other troubles. After he discovered the shady relationship between his father and Lee Yul's mother, he immediately ordered the old library, where he found the suspicious photo, to be repaired. However, the king objected to this decision. The king thought that there were more important matters to deal with than focusing on repairing an old library. Not stopping there, after Lee Shin returned to the palace, Lee Yul's mother also came to see him. She firmly refused to let him touch this library. Finally, Lee Shin explained the reason why he wanted to repair the library. He felt that the place was too dirty to keep because he had discovered an inappropriate relationship. Meanwhile, Jae-kyung went to her parents' workplace, wanting to meet and talk to them. The three were still confiding when Lee Shin suddenly appeared. Lee Shin not only criticized Jae-kyung, but also blamed her parents. Lee Shin reminded that when living in the royal palace, people cannot continue to behave like commoners. Lee Shin also firmly opposed letting Jae-kyung return to her own home. The day came when Min Hyo-rin left to study abroad. Lee Shin wanted to take Jae-kyung with him to see her off, but she flatly refused. Jae-kyung thought that if she appeared there, it would be even harder for them to talk to each other, so it was best for him to go alone. In the end, Lee Shin went to the airport alone to see Min Hyo-rin off, whom he had once loved. Meanwhile, Lee Yul kept trying to convince Jae-kyung. He insisted that the upcoming interview was her only chance to ask for a divorce. If she missed this time, Jae-kyung would have no other chance to leave this marriage. Lee Yul's words made Jae-kyung even more confused. She didn't know what to decide because she was also in a mess of mixed emotions. During the live interview on television, the most sensitive question was also asked. The reporter frankly mentioned the love story of the Crown Prince and Crown Princess because everyone knew that their marriage started from an arranged marriage. Lee Shin calmly accepted the question. In front of the camera, Lee Shin declared that although their marriage was an arranged marriage, there was true love between the two. The interview seemed to have ended well. The MC was about to say the final words, but at that moment, Jae-kyung suddenly hesitated. She hesitated for a long time, but finally spoke. To everyone's surprise, Jae-kyung loudly declared that they wanted a divorce. At that moment, the entire hall fell into silence. As soon as Jae-kyung finished speaking, the entire hall was still in heavy silence. But Lee Shin reacted promptly, not letting things stop there. He calmly continued. Lee Shin took Jae-kyung's hand in front of everyone. He frankly admitted that they had thought about divorce, but last night, they agreed to continue being together. The reason was none other than his love for Jae-kyung. Lee Shin looked deeply into Jae-kyung's eyes and said that he truly loved her. Lee Shin understood that life in the palace had never been easy for Jae-kyung, a girl who was originally a commoner. Now Jae-kyung had to get used to the harsh rules in a life completely different from what she had known. Lee Shin also did not forget to thank Jae-kyung for her courage in agreeing to marry him. She had accepted to trade her freedom for a stressful married life. Finally, the Crown Prince ended the interview with an apology to all the people. He felt sorry for making everyone worried and confused all this time. The interview ended with an ending that no one could have predicted. When the two got in the carriage to return to the palace, the atmosphere inside became colder than ever. Lee Shin did not say a word. He had nothing more to say to his wife because he was now too disappointed. Lee Shin had told Jae-kyung to trust him many times, but in the end, she still did not choose to trust him. Jae-kyung broke all the trust Lee Shin had in her by declaring that she wanted a divorce in front of millions of viewers. Throughout the history of the palace, no crown princess had ever dared to say such words on television. When they returned to the palace, the king and queen could not hide their anger. They scolded Jae-kyung severely, but Lee Shin did not let her suffer alone. He calmly stood up to protect her. He said that everyone in the palace really did not understand her. Therefore, before, Li Xin hoped that in the future everyone would give Chae-kyung a chance to understand each other more. He also declared that he would always be by her side. He would try to overcome everything with her. After everything was over, the two returned to their room. At this point, Chae-kyung truly regretted what she said in the interview. She confessed that she did not know if he was sincere with her or if he was simply responding to the interview perfunctorily. Chae-kyung was afraid that all of Li Xin's words were just to maintain the image of the royal family and not from true feelings. But Li Xin did not let her doubt any longer. For the first time, he frankly said everything that had been hidden in his heart. Li Xin affirmed that everything he said before came from his heart. Those were not words arranged to please the public, but the words of a man to the woman he loved. Li Xin had fallen in love with Chae-kyung. He truly loved her, truly wanted to be with her. But what hurt Li Xin the most was that Chae-kyung did not believe him. He had put all his trust in her, but she still chose to leave him. Even though Li Xin had confessed everything, Chae-kyung did not hesitate to say the word divorce on television. Even though Chae-kyung had apologized profusely, Li Xin still did not forgive her. After the interview, the atmosphere between the two became extremely stifling. They lived in the same palace, but there was an invisible distance between them that could not be erased. Li Xin became cold and distant, as if he no longer wanted to do anything. Li Xin spent the whole day just sitting quietly looking at the photos of Chae-kyung, especially the photos of the two going to the beach together. In each photo, Chae-kyung smiled brightly, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Looking at those photos, his heart became even more sad. Even though in the photos she looked so happy, in reality there was only hurt and disappointment between them. At the same time, the royal palace was preparing to hold an important conference. They asked the emperor and his son to join the discussion with the courtiers. However, the emperor had completely rejected his son by now. He no longer considered Li Xin a worthy successor and flatly declared that he would not accompany Li Xin to the conference. Although the queen tried to protest, the emperor remained firm in his stance. He no longer wanted to accept this son. Not caring about the attitude of his wife and child, the emperor left with Li Yule, leaving Li Xin standing there, speechless and bitter. As for Chae-kyung, she could not bear the guilt of what she had done. To make up for her mistake, Chae-kyung knelt before the emperor's palace door, begging for his forgiveness. However, the emperor did not let this go easily. He looked down at Chae-kyung with cold eyes filled with suspicion. The emperor asked her if all this trouble was related to that mysterious young man. He wanted to know who that man really was. However, Chae-kyung could not answer. She could not tell the truth, because if she revealed that it was Li Yule, things would become even more complicated. At this time, Li Xin was also there. Seeing his wife kneeling in the cold weather, he could not help but feel sorry. Li Xin walked up to Chae-kyung and told her that she did not need to do that. He affirmed that no matter how long she knelt, things would not change. The king would definitely not forgive her for this action. But Chae-kyung was still determined. She told him that this was a mistake that she needed to take responsibility for. She had to deal with the consequences herself. Even when the queen mother personally came to persuade her, Chae-kyung still refused to listen. She still knelt on the steps, her eyes filled with regret and remorse. Chae-kyung still persistently knelt in front of the palace gate and hoped that after the conference ended, the king would calm down and forgive her. When the king returned to the palace, his eyes flashed with annoyance when he saw her still kneeling there without leaving. Annoyed by Chae-kyung's stubbornness, he coldly ordered her to return immediately. The king said that he did not want to be turned into a difficult person. What Chae-kyung did would not change anything. But Chae-kyung was unmoved. She calmly told the king to trust Li Xin, because in fact, Li Xin had always tried to maintain this father-son relationship. Chae-kyung earnestly hoped that the king could see Li Xin's heart instead of continuing to avoid him. In another corner of the palace, Li Yule could no longer bear to see Chae-kyung so miserable. He went to the queen mother. Li Yule earnestly begged her to come forward and help. Looking at her grandson's worried expression, the queen mother finally understood what was going on between the children. Not wanting things to continue to fall into a stalemate, she ordered all the royal children to be summoned to talk together. During the family meeting, everyone spoke up for Chae-kyung. They hoped that the emperor could overlook this matter and forgive her. However, the emperor remained firm. He declared that as long as he did not know the identity of the man who was with Chae-kyung that day, he could not decide whether to forgive her or not. The whole room fell silent. No one dared to speak up. Suddenly, Li Yule, who was sitting in the middle of the family meeting, slowly spoke up. Li Yule frankly admitted that the person who was with Chae-kyung that day was him. Hearing this, everyone was not too surprised, but the emperor was completely different. His eyes became dazed and looked straight at his nephew. After a moment of silence, he asked Li Yule directly if you had feelings for Chae-kyung. Without hesitation, Li Yule calmly admitted that he loved Chae-kyung very much, but Li Xin was standing outside. He had heard everything his brother said. Li Xin's emotions were in turmoil, but he still tried to stay calm. After the family meeting ended, Li Xin took the initiative to go to Li Yule to talk. Li Xin frankly asked Li Yule to give up the thought of being with Chae-kyung. However, Li Yule did not back down. Li Yule looked straight at Li Xin and declared that he was willing to give up the throne. Li Yule did not need fame, he just needed Chae-kyung by his his side. After a tense conversation between the two went to Chae-kyung, where she was still kneeling in the cold. Seeing that Chae-kyung was exhausted, Leol stepped forward. He gently helped her up. Leol wanted to take Chae-kyung back to her room to rest. However, at that moment, Lee Shin also came over. Lee Shin held his wife's hand and wanted to take Chae-kyung back himself, but she refused. Chae-kyung pushed Lee Shin's hand away and said that she had no intention of asking him for help. Chae-kyung's cold and hurtful words were like an invisible knife, stabbing straight into Lee Shin's heart. After the emperor found out that Lee Yuk had developed feelings for Chae-kyung, he could no longer ignore it. The emperor decided that this matter needed to be resolved. He could not let the royal palace become a laughingstock. He also wanted to know Chae-kyung's true feelings for Lee Yul. Was she also moved? Immediately after that, the whole family was summoned to discuss this matter. Before the important meeting, Lee Shin went to Chae-kyung. He tried to calm down and told her that it was best to say that the feelings between her and Lee Yul were just friends. Lee Shin wanted Chae-kyung to deny everything to avoid causing more trouble, but Chae-kyung was too tired. Chae-kyung didn't want to continue lying or hiding anything anymore. Chae-kyung blamed Lee Shin. She asked him why he didn't come to her when she was in so much pain. Where was he when she knelt in the cold for hours? Lee Shin looked straight at Chae-kyung, his eyes full of hurt. Lee Shin's voice was lower and colder than ever. Lee Shin said that he was betrayed by Chae-kyung and Lee Yul. He wanted her to understand that betrayal comes with a price. Lee Shin's words were full of resentment, but also contained deep pain. Meanwhile, Chae-kyung's family also knew everything. They sat down together to discuss and try to think about which guy was really suitable for their daughter. Chae-kyung's parents began to imagine the scenario if Chae-kyung chose Lee Yul. Then Lee Yul would be a gentle man who would care for and look after his wife. Lee Yuk would not be cold and distant like Lee Shin. Lee Yul would love and pamper Chae-kyung, just like how Chae-kyung's father always treated her mother. However, even though their reason told them to think that way, they could not deny that Lee Shin and Chae-kyung were husband and wife, and their feelings could not be judged by appearances. In another corner of the royal palace, the emperor summoned Chae-kyung to talk privately. He looked at Chae-kyung with cold eyes, then spoke sternly. The emperor questioned her that he knew clearly about Lee Yul's feelings for Chae-kyung. So why didn't Chae-kyung keep her distance from Lee Yuk? The emperor continued to criticize Chae-kyung for going out late at night with her brother-in-law. That made things even more noisy. The emperor's words were as sharp as a knife, leaving Chae-kyung unable to refute anything. She could only lower her head and cry, unable to say anything more. After a moment of silence, the emperor made his final decision. He announced that Lee Yul would be punished. Lee Yul would be forced to leave the palace, and he would no longer be allowed to be near Chae-kyung. This was the only way to end things. Immediately after hearing the news, Lee Yul's mother came to the emperor. She used their past love affair as an excuse, hoping that the emperor would revoke this order. However, the emperor did not waver. He kept his decision because this was no longer a matter of love, but related to the honor of the royal family. Unable to convince the emperor, Lee Yul's mother decided to take a different path. She secretly spread the story of the crown princess and Lee Yul to the high-ranking officials in the palace. Immediately, the palace was in an uproar again. The officials began to discuss, and finally they came to a unanimous decision that the crown princess was no longer worthy of the throne. They demanded that Chae-kyung be deposed. Hearing this, she did not protest or defend herself. Chae-kyung silently accepted her fate of being stripped of her throne and banished from the palace. Although Lee Shin tried to hold on, Chae-kyung remained steadfast in her decision. Chae-kyung said that at this moment, she no longer wanted anything. Chae-kyung had once wished to be by the crown prince's side as his wife. She wanted them to work together to overcome all difficulties. But now, things had gone too far. Chae-kyung felt that there was nothing more she could do. She also knew that she had influenced Lee Shin too much. The only thing Chae-kyung could do now was leave. Then Chae-kyung went to Lee Yul. Chae-kyung calmly told him that she would leave the palace. After leaving, Chae-kyung would also cut off all ties with Lee Yul. She would no longer be involved in the royal palace. Next, Chae-kyung went to meet the elders. She officially asked to accept the decision of the officials. Chae-kyung said that she wanted to live as a normal person because she could no longer endure life in the palace. In another corner of the royal palace, Lee Shin was in the darkroom developing photos. In the space with only the dim light from the photo lamp, he absent-mindedly looked at the old photos. Lee Shin's mind was now filled with chaotic thoughts. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. Lee Shin opened it to see that it was a message from Chae-kyung. She told him to come to Lee Yul's palace immediately. Before that, the palace had been hit by a fierce fire, causing chaos. The fire spread quickly, causing the entire palace to panic. After the incident was brought under control, the officials conducted an investigation to find the cause and the suspects. When the list of suspicious people was released, surprisingly, Lee Shin became the #1 suspect. Suspicion fell on him, making everything more chaotic than ever. At the same time, Lee Yul's mother was injured in the fire, and she had to be hospitalized for treatment. However, it was not difficult to realize that Lee Yul's mother was the one who caused the injury. Her purpose was obvious. She wanted to put all the blame on Li Xin. Li Yul's mother had calculated it carefully. She used the excuse that Li Yul had publicly confessed his feelings to Che Kyung, so Li Xin had set the fire in revenge. Li Yul's mother tried to turn this into a power struggle. She wanted to use this event to overthrow Li Xin, causing him to be deposed, and Li Yul to take the throne as crown prince. Under the heavy pressure of the accusations, Li Xin completely collapsed. He did not want to contact anyone. Li Xin also refused to meet or talk to anyone. Che Kyung was extremely worried, but she did not know how to approach him. In the end, Che Kyung was forced to ask for news about Li Xin's health through the palace official who was in charge of serving the crown prince. When Che Kyung heard that Li Xin's condition was getting worse, she did not hesitate any longer. Despite all the prohibitions and rules of the royal palace, Che Kyung rushed straight into Li Xin's room. She did not care about anyone who tried to stop her. Che Kyung just wanted to see him immediately. When she saw Li Xin sitting quietly and alone in the dark, Che Kyung's heart ached. Unable to control herself, she walked over and hugged him tightly. Che Kyung's voice was trembling but full of determination. Che Kyung said that the only reason she wanted to stay in the palace was because of Li Xin. If he was no longer here, she wouldn't want to stay either. Hearing that, Li Xin was speechless. He said softly that he might be kicked out of the palace. Li Xin might even lose his position as crown prince. Che Kyung didn't hesitate. She affirmed that Che Kyung loved Li Xin, not because of his title as crown prince, but because of who he was. She didn't need anything else. Right now, Che Kyung only needed Li Xin. He looked at her, his eyes wavering. Li Xin was worried. He was afraid that Che Kyung would be implicated, would suffer because of being with him. But Che Kyung remained steadfast. She said that if he just said one word, she would stay with him forever. The atmosphere was silent. Li Xin didn't say anything. Che Kyung saw his hesitant expression and her heart sank. Che Kyung sadly turned around and walked out of the room. But when she had only taken 3 steps, a familiar voice rang out behind her. The voice was filled with emotion, as if Li Xin could not hold back any longer. He called Che Kyung's name and told her not to leave. Li Xin wanted Che Kyung to stay by his side. At that moment, Che Kyung turned around. Che Kyung ran towards Li Xin and hugged him. The two finally broke all distance and indulged in a passionate and emotional kiss. After that moment, Che Kyung and Li Xin had truly confirmed their feelings for each other. After making up, the two sat down and talked about their future. Li Xin half-jokingly said that he would most likely be kicked out of the palace and become homeless. Li Xin asked Che Kyung if she would take care of him then. Hearing that, Che Kyung burst out laughing, and the two imagined the future. At that time, Li Xin would be the one to cook and clean the house. Che Kyung would be the one to go to work and earn money to support the family. Together, they imagined a simple life without the constraints of the royal palace, where they could freely love and care for each other. The atmosphere in the East Palace became happier than ever. Laughter rang out once again, making the maids feel more relieved. However, Li Jun witnessed everything. He stood from afar and saw their happy smiles. Li Yul's heart was more miserable than ever. Unable to control his surging emotions, Li Jun went to his grandmother to confide. Lying in her arms, he cried like a child. Li Yul showed the weakness he had suppressed for so long. At the same time, the adults in the family had a closed meeting. They agreed that someone needed to take responsibility for all the recent scandals, and that person was Che Kyung. The plan was to send Che Kyung to study abroad so that she could stay away from all the gossip and scandals in the royal palace. At the same time, Che Kyung would have to take the blame and take full responsibility. However, Li Xin did not accept this. He was determined to protect his wife at all costs. Then, Li Xin returned to see Che Kyung. He held her hand tightly and said that no matter what happened, she should trust him. He asked her to promise him that she would not trust anyone else but him. At this time, Che Kyung had completely loved Li Xin. She no longer hesitated and nodded in agreement. Che Kyung promised to listen to everything Li Xin said. Although they had decided to be together, they both understood that there were things beyond their control. The classmates who had criticized their relationship before now gradually understood the story. The close friends came to see Che Kyung. They asked her to send words of encouragement to Li Xin and express their support for the two. On Li Xin's side, he had an important meeting with Li Yul. Li Xin said that the crown prince position originally belonged to Li Jun, so he should take it back. Li Xin had no intention of fighting for it, nor did he care about the throne. Li Xin now only wanted to protect the girl he loved. However, he also did not accept Li Jun talking about love. Li Xin thought that Li Jun no longer had the right to talk about love, because it was his feelings that caused Che Kyung to be kicked out of the royal palace. On Che Kyung's side, she knew that she could not stay any longer. Che Kyung finally agreed to go abroad. She understood that this was the best choice to protect Li Xin. But when he heard this news, Li Jun was extremely angry. He confronted his mother and asked her to stop everything. Li Yul threatened that if his mother continued to force Kyung, he didn't know what he would do. When Li Xin heard this news, he felt even more upset. He wanted to keep Che Kyung, but in this situation, they couldn't do anything else. Che Kyung comforted Li Xin, saying that she left because she wanted to protect him. Che Kyung wanted everything to be better. Then they hugged each other tightly without holding back their tears. In the last days before leaving, Che Kyung wanted to spend time with Li Xin. She took him everywhere and enjoyed their last happy moments together. They went shopping together, played video games together, went for walks, and enjoyed every happy moment. In the middle of that, news suddenly came. The palace maid reported that she received Li Xin's request to set fire. The incident related to the arson in the palace was increasingly clarified, and all the evidence pointed to Li Xin. More notably, a large sum of money from Li Xin was transferred to the palace maid. This information further confirmed that the culprit was the crown prince. As for Che Kyung, the day of departure was approaching. The atmosphere between the couple became more quiet and sad than ever. She could not stop her heartache. Li Xin could not do anything at that time. Meanwhile, Li Jun finally learned the truth that his mother was the one behind all this. Li Yul felt extremely heartbroken, but he was helpless because he could not stop her. When Li Xin was taken away for investigation, Che Kyung was in great pain, but she could only send him off with a look of pity. At this point, Li Jun could no longer remain silent. He did not want to see Che Kyung suffer any more pain, nor did he want his mother to make any more mistakes. So Li Yul held an emergency press conference. In front of the press officials and the people, Li Jun frankly admitted everything. He openly confessed that he was the one behind the whole incident, including the arson in the palace. He did not hesitate to admit that his only reason was to regain the crown prince position. When this news came out, Li Jun's mother fell into a state of severe depression. She quietly drove out and got into a serious accident. However, fate was not too cruel. Li Yul's mother was fortunately not seriously injured. After all that had happened, the king finally realized his mistakes. He felt regret for his past decisions. At the same time, he also realized that his health was no longer enough to shoulder the royal responsibilities. In the end, he decided to abdicate and pass the throne to Li Xin. Although everything was over, Li Jun still carried in his heart the pain that was hard to heal. He went to see his mother. For the first time, he talked to her with all his sincerity. Li Yul expressed his love for his mother. He said that he did not want to fight for power anymore. Now, Li Yul only wished that the mother and son could leave the palace together and then live a peaceful life like before. As for Che Kyung, after leaving the palace, she devoted all her heart to studying. Che Kyung set a clear goal for herself, which was to become a top fashion designer. One beautiful morning, Che Kyung walked out of the apartment. She was surprised to see Li Xin come to see her. The two then had happy moments together. They enjoyed a rare moment after a long time apart. Not only Li Xin, the queen mother also came with him to visit her. The queen mother could not hide her joy when she saw them happy. Here, the queen mother encouraged Che Kyung and Li Xin to get married again, but this time it would be a love marriage, not a royal arranged marriage. The queen mother also gave Li Xin traditional family mementos and encouraged her nephew to boldly express his feelings to his wife. Listening to her words, Li Xin proposed to Che Kyung. He hoped that she would have an official wedding with him, a real wedding that stemmed from their sincere love. Che Kyung hesitated a bit and then gently asked for more time to think. However, Li Xin just smiled and said that he had to leave tomorrow. The next morning, when Li Xin was preparing to leave by car, he suddenly saw a ring box in his room. He gently picked it up and felt an indescribable happiness in his heart. When the car started moving, Li Xin was surprised to see Che Kyung waiting for him. She walked over and gently asked him to remove the scarf. When he removed the scarf, Li Xin saw 2 rings around Che Kyung's neck. At that moment, the two looked at each other with emotion, and then a simple but meaningful wedding was held under the witness of the Queen Mother, who had always silently supported their love. After the ceremony ended, everyone took a commemorative photo together. Together, they captured the happy moments of their lives. However, while the group was busy taking pictures, Che Kyung suddenly showed signs of continuous nausea. The Queen Mother saw Che Kyung's strange expression. She looked at the two of them with meaningful eyes and asked if they had good news. Her words made both of them stunned. Li Xin and Che Kyung turned to look at each other shyly. It seemed that both of them had answered that question. Yes, they had a child. After all the ups and downs, the love story in the modern palace had finally ended. A more beautiful and happier ending than ever.